Sound check 1 2 3. Sound check 1 2 3.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Public Works Committee meeting September 8, 2025. As we have quorum present for today's meeting, I would like to call this meeting to order. A reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during the committee meeting. All right, so we have Councillor McMeekin, Councillor Wilson, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Kassar, Councillor Matt Francis, Councillor Wilson, Maureen Wilson, Councillor Kretsch, Councillor Beatty, Councillor Taddison, and Councillor Wang. Thank you, and we have Councillor Nan on WebEx. Thank you. Okay, ceremonial activities. I just want to say that today we do have a ceremonial activity, and it's the introduction of our Director, Corporate Asset Manager in Public Works Department, Michael Wright. And I want Jackie Kennedy, the acting GM, will say a few words. And I want to say thank you for acting as GM. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Pauls. So Michael Wright has joined us as of this morning. He's the new temporary Director of Corporate Asset Management. He is down here to my right. He joins us from the city of Courtenay, British Columbia, returning to Hamilton, where he spent some time as a youngster, I think, and has worked in the public sector in Ontario in the past, as well as in the private sector here in corporate asset management type roles. So we are very happy to have him joining the team here in Public Works. Welcome, Michael.
Welcome. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on. Approval of the agenda. May I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Beatty and Councillor Francis, thank you, to approve the agenda presented. There's no discussion, so vote to show of hands. Everybody, raise your left hand, right hand, whatever. Thank you, and it's carried. Declaration of interest. Are there any declaration of interest? I don't see any, so we will move on. Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, July 28th. May I please have a mover and a seconder to adopt the previous meeting? Councillor Wang and Councillor Kretsch. Thank you. Any discussions? I don't see any. Show of hands. Approved. Okay, delegation. Now, before we begin our delegation for today's members are reminded that questions of the delegation are for clarification purpose only, not for debate. Okay, and a note to the delegates. You have 5 minutes to complete your delegation. You will hear a tone after 4 minutes, and then you will have an additional 1 minute to finish up. And our first one is Robert Secan, and it is virtually. Respecting requests for sidewalk installation on Francis Avenue. So Robert, are you online?
Yes, I am.
Thank you, and you have 5 minutes.
All right, thank you, everyone. So my name is Robert. I live in the Lakewood Landing community. For those that are unfamiliar, it is this area that is north of the QEW. And are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect.
Beautiful view.
Thank you. So the city has invested tens of millions of dollars into upgrading the Confederation Beach Park, which has been phenomenal. It's a very, very nice park. And as a resident of this area, I very much enjoy going there. The issue is that there is a lack of sidewalks to get to this beautiful park, as well as just a lack of sidewalks in this area in general. This area that is in the red, these are all of the residents that are not able to safely access the park that is located here. The only ways to get here is by foot. If you're not using a car, would be across Francis Avenue, which is this purple line, or North Service Road, which is, not safe at all. So as a result of that, anyone that wants to bike or walk is forced to walk along Francis Avenue. For those that are unfamiliar, this is what Francis Avenue looks currently. There is no sidewalk installation whatsoever. And so the people that are looking to go out for a bike ride, to walk, are basically forced to walk alongside the road, along the very busy street. On a day like this morning, where there's garbage pickup, you're not even going to be able to easily walk along the neighbors' front yards. Looking the other direction, there's another park that is located very close by. It's called Edge Lake Park. As you can see, there's been footpaths that have been carved into the neighbor's property as a result of no sidewalks for fear of being hit by a vehicle. And then this is the other park. And so as you can see, there's no easy access here whatsoever. These are very, very popular parks in this neighborhood. So if we start to walk back towards the Confederation Beach Park, as you can see, no sidewalk access. As you get closer and closer to the park, the issue becomes worse. Again, garbage collection forces people onto the road, but even if there's nothing obstructing, you have sections like this where the curb is actually bending out and into the traffic. This is just a little example as to how much width we have to deal with. Barely enough for a person to get through, let alone a stroller or any sort of wagon or anything for children. This is extremely dangerous. And there's really no reason that this has not been resolved at this point. Moving further along, you get out onto the street. And again, the only thing that's separating you from oncoming vehicles or vehicles right beside you is paint. There's no curbs, there's no knockdown sticks, there's no Jersey barriers, there's nothing. There's been many times where I am within a few feet of being hit by another vehicle, and it is extremely dangerous, especially given the fact that so many people are distracted while they drive. It is very concerning that there is no sort of warning, rumble strip, nothing. They can just drive right into people. This is Drake's Drive. Again, completely beaten up road, very difficult to get across with bike or stroller, but assuming you get past that, you're in this section, which is the most dangerous of them all. And the reason for it is that, again, you have very many vehicles that are of large proportion that are driving right beside. The reason for this is that off of Grays Road, you have this, what effectively is like an on-ramp to get onto North Service Road. And because of the Stony Creek Business Park, you have very large vehicles like this that take the liberty of crossing over the lanes to give themselves enough turning radius. I took all of these photos this morning, by the way. I didn't have to research very far or go back into the archives to find a bunch of examples. This is all within a 5-minute span. So this was about an hour and a half ago. This is another vehicle that is taking the liberty to cross over, another one, and another one. And what this does is that the vehicles that are going the opposite direction, they need to make room for these vehicles. And so they go onto the shoulder, making there be even less room for the pedestrians that are trying to get themselves to the park. A picture like this is very frustrating to me because you have a woman here that is walking with her dog. And then you have this giant truck that is trying to round the bend. Meanwhile, there's a gigantic grassy patch on the right side. This should be converted into a sidewalk, or better yet, a multi-use path is what I'm advocating for. There should be a multi-use path that goes along the northern stretch of Francis Avenue, and there's room for it. We have the space for it. It's just, this is not planned properly, and it's going to lead to someone getting hurt. Again, This is just an example from this morning. I took about an hour ago. You have multiple cyclists here. You even have somebody walking on the opposite side of the road. We need sidewalks here. This is too busy of a place to not have this installed at this point. There is really no reason to put these people's lives in jeopardy just because they want to go and make use of the trails. This is where everyone is heading to. This is Confederation Beach Park. This is the entrance. This is the opposite side looking out. Not the most welcoming. What I would also advocate, in addition to a multi-use path, is that there should be a path along the west side. That's this area located right here. And it should stretch out to about the intersection. This is looking back the other way. And it should cross over to the green space that's adjacent to the shoulder of the road, and then go along the northern portion to Francis Avenue. Like I said before, there's plenty of space to do this. What I would really advocate for is some sort of Jersey barriers, at least for this section. There's no people's driveways here. There's nothing that would cause an obstruction to anyone getting to their home. And because of the large use of tractor trailers, I would highly recommend this. But at this point, I'm just happy with anything. If we can get knockdown sticks, if we can get bike curbs, bike lanes, anything, that would go a great distance. So again, here's the entrance to the pathway. This is Grays Avenue. Grays Road. This is Francis Avenue here. So at minimum, what I would be requesting is there to be a review of this portion, specifically how we can safely get people from the east side of this pond along Francis Avenue and easily get them into the front gates of Confederation Beach Park.
Thank you, Robert. Your 5 minutes, and I just want to say thank you for your concern about safety. As you're showing us the picture, we see it fully that it needs something. So thank you for your advocacy on safety for everyone. So I'm going to see if there's any questions from our members here. Councillor Beattie.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Robert. Good to see you again. We met out on the site on, I think it was August 15th, and we walked the entirety of Grays Road together, Francis Avenue together. And I think it's super impactful, and in some ways, a delegate can present in a way that a councillor can't always, because we're sitting here receiving. So everything that you've highlighted is exactly what the community has been advocating for a number of years, particularly since I took office. And at the appropriate time, Chair, I will ask of staff some questions. And I don't know that I think we have to receive the delegation first and go through those formalities. So, Robert, you're welcome to watch along on YouTube. Just from a process. I was going to ask you, Robert, I know that in the conversation we were talking about sidewalks versus multi-use paths. I was going to ask you if you'd had any kind of preference. You mentioned the multi-use path is probably the preferred. Just wondering in terms of conversations that you may have had between, let's say, when we met on site a little less than a month ago to now, has there been any conversation in terms of what the preference in the community might be from a long-term standpoint, if they're thinking similarly to you, that the multi-use path may accommodate more user types, being cyclists and pedestrians, getting them off the road, as opposed to a hard sidewalk, which might create some more additional pinch points, given that there's a restriction there in how wide the road is in order to accommodate both a cycling infrastructure and pedestrian infrastructure. Just a little more elaboration, if you don't mind, Robert, in terms of your thinking on that and that of the community.
Robert?
Yes. So based off of neighbors and people in the area, I mean, there's pros and cons to both, right? I think the multi-use path is still the option that makes the most amount of sense, simply because it allows for one of the more common uses, which is bike. On weekends, it is not hard to see hundreds of cyclists, sometimes even thousands on a weekend, where large groups of people will meet together. So the benefit of having a multi-use path is that we could accommodate all of those vehicles, like all of those, uses. But My only concern is that there's no barrier or separation. I know that there's some curbs that could be installed. There's like those rubber style curbs for the bike lanes. If that was there, that would be useful. But one of the concerns that people have, and it's something that a sidewalk would address, is that it's a raised elevation. So should someone not be fully attentive at the wheel, there's at least a curb to potentially nudge them back. Right now, the concern is that there is just paint on the road, and someone could very easily run into a cyclist, a mother with a stroller, just somebody walking. So I think I can speak for the whole community. Anything is better than what the current plan is right now, but I do think a multi-use path with some sort of separator, whether it be those little bump outs or Jersey barriers or something of that nature, would go a long way.
Perfect. Thank you, Robert, and thank you, Chair. Just a quick follow-up then. Knowing how important this is to the community and know that you've engaged with the community, I've engaged with the community as well. There is a community council in the area, Lakewood Beach Community Association, which many members are familiar with. Perhaps would you think some kind of an engagement session would be appropriate to ensure that local input is properly considered with any of the options? And I see the director's already nodding her head, but we'll get to that in further questions. Do you think that would be a good situation to sit down and review some of these options? And I say that from the standpoint, I learned over the weekend that Lakewood Beach actually came forward in 2016 before this committee with a delegation on this same matter about 9 years ago, I've just come to learn. Going back to them and the community, kind of with this underlying expectation that a direction was given 9 years ago, obviously hasn't been fulfilled. We should probably go back and refresh everybody's memory on it. I'm just wanting to get your feedback on that.
Robert?
Yeah, I'd be very happy to help coordinate something like that. Anything I can do to help move this forward.
Thank you, Robert.
Wonderful,
And I want to
thank
say, kudos to you for bringing this up. And I want to say that you have a great counselor that will look into it as well. So it's great. So thank you. And if you could stay, listen to, no. Oh, sorry, there's someone else. Okay, Councillor Kazar, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Councillor Beatty asked one of the questions I had, but Robert, I wanted to say thank you for the presentation. You did a really good job making it clear on the concerns and your thoughts. I just was curious if you had any background in this area, because you spoke very knowledgeably of some of the options and potential solutions.
Well, my background extends to being a real estate agent, so there's some of that in there, certainly. But it's mostly just the fact that I live on Francis Avenues. So it's of personal concern to myself. I've seen too many close calls, and, I really don't want someone from the community or, of course, even my family get hurt here. So really, it stems from passion and some foundational understanding of how neighborhoods are designed.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I suspected, and then kind of that's a really good answer because it comes from a genuine place of passion and care for the community. And so good on you, Robert, and thank you again for being here.
And thank you again. So we will, you could stay online and listen to some of the question that Councillor Beatty has for staff, and after we receive all the delegates. So thank you again. Okay, 6.2, we have Mary Stimac, respecting removal of a tall, healthy pine tree on city property, and that's in person.
Chair Pauls, I don't see Mary in the audience.
Okay, should we, we'll move on, and then at the end, I'll ask if she's here, and then we'll ask one more time. Thank you. 6.3, Colleen Long, respecting Red Hill Valley Parkway issue. And she's in person. So thank you, Colleen. And like I said, you have 5 minutes. You will hear the bell, and then you have 1 more minute. And then after 5 minutes, I will say, if anybody has questions, we'll move on. you would have to get a mover. So, well, you know what, how many, you want about 6 minutes? 9? Well, then you would need a mover and a seconder. Anybody want to move it? Committee? Councillor McMeekin. Okay, we'll give you then 9 minutes. And I need a seconder. I'll get Councillor Taddison. Thank you. Okay. Oh, we need to vote, e-scribe, right? Oh, by hand. Everybody by hand, please. Okay, and it passes. Okay, Colleen, you could start.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and all committee members. My name is Colleen Long, and I live at 70 Brook Stream Court in Hamilton, Ontario, and I've lived there since 1986. I'm here today to speak about the negative impacts the Red Hill Valley Parkway, also known as the RHVP, has had on my life and my family's life, on our health, safety, and quality of life. My home used to back onto Kings Forest, but now backs onto the expressway. My yard is approximately 60 feet from the highway. My home is possibly the closest home to the expressway. The city designated my home as the worst-case scenario for negative impacts. Before the city started building the expressway, we had several meetings with staff and managers about the impacts of the expressway. We were told over and over again that this expressway would not negatively impact our lives because they were installing mitigation that would block out the noise and any impacts that may be associated with it. With mitigation, we would still be able to enjoy our homes and our yards and not have any negative effects to our health, lives, and homes. Although the city fought to be exempt from a federal environmental assessment, they still had to adhere to the EIS guidelines, which the city signed in November 3rd, 1999. Information in these guidelines state that the proponent, which is the city, indicated that particulate matter and total suspended particulate is predicted to exceed provincial criteria 13% of the time. Changes in sound levels as a result of the expressway operation are predicted to be significant in noise-sensitive areas. Visual impacts within some sections of the project are predicted to be high. The guidelines also speak about the need for mitigation, restitution, monitoring, and a formal ongoing follow-up program, all designed to determine the effectiveness of the mitigation provided. None of these were done. The traffic noise impact assessment, April 2003, by RWDI. It states excesses over guideline limits were predicted for most of the worst-case receivers studied, and therefore the effectiveness of various mitigation methods were assessed. At some receiver locations, a preliminary barrier feasibility study conducted by the city indicated that noise barriers could not be practically implemented due to technical, administrative, or economic concerns. Ambient or existing sound exposures are unusually low for this urban-like environment at receivers along the midsection of the expressway. Predicted mitigated noise levels range from as much as 7 decibels below to 7 decibels above the 55 decibel provincial objective, depending on location and traffic scenario. Increasing the barrier height to 4 meters at these locations was found to provide only 1 to 2 decibels of additional attenuation and is therefore not recommended. At locations where feasibility concerns were prevented practical use of a noise barrier, predicted noise levels remained up to 18 decibels above the ambient for both traffic scenarios and up to 14 decibels and up to 15 decibels above the 55 decibel requirement for the Vision 2021 and Trend 2021 scenarios. When the road was finished, there was no noise barrier behind my home. The berm to the south stopped and tapered down before my home, and the wall along Green Hill tapered down the valley as well. The berm the city said they were going to build my home. Excuse me?
Okay, what's your point of order?
The delegate has made a claim against the city. I would just want to turn this over to ask for legal advice from the city solicitor to see if we're charting into territory here that discusses a legal matter.
Okay, do we have the solicitor here? Or if not, can I ask Colleen if you do not stay on topic and because it is legal matters and not get into it.
I was staying on topic of what I wanted to say. I wasn't asking for specifically anything at this point.
Councillor, do we have legal here?
Lisa's online.
Okay, Lise, okay, you could ask. Go ahead, Councillor Francis.
I think I've already asked the question to
Okay,
the city solicitor.
did you hear, solicitor, did you hear the question from Councillor Francis?
Yes, through the chair, I did. So my understanding is that there is a claim by this particular delegate about the issues that she's talking about against the city. So I'm just here to answer that if council needs me to provide any legal advice on that.
Okay, so,
Then I would just say that it would be inappropriate for the delegate to be discussing that legal matter before us. If that proceeds, I'll be calling a point of order again.
okay, you could continue, and if Councillor Francis, because it is his ward, thinks we'll ask the solicitor again if you did, if you can continue or not, okay?
Or we've had just background information. Okay, that would be great, thank you. In several emails from the city in 2/18, 2/19, 20, 21, and 22, they said they would mitigate the noise at my home by increasing the height of the noise wall as well as the berm and bring them around to meet each other. In 2/19, the city was undertaking a geotechnical study to investigate proper mitigation at my home. In another email from the city in May 2022, they said there is a feasibility study underway and it will assess the noise mitigation needs throughout the expressway and the link, as there have been other complaints of noise levels and changes in traffic since both roads are open. In October 2022, the city again said they would increase the height of the noise wall and hired a consultant to plan the upgrade and work with Duracell to design the height extension of the wall. All these updates never happened, and I don't know why. In August 2022, I had a WebEx meeting with the city officials. We talked about noise and pollution, but had no answers. I stated that I had a solution since the city would not or could not fix the failing berm and wall. I said I wanted a buyout and compensation and restitution. This was nothing new since it was in the EIS guidelines the city signed in 1999, which states that if mitigation does not work, then compensation and restitution should be discussed. As well, we were told that if anyone did not want to live next to the expressway, the city would buy them out.
Okay, what's your point of order?
These are allegations against the city which are in dispute. It's inappropriate to discuss those matters.
Well, she's just stating what's going on, but I'll ask the solicitor if it's okay for Colleen Long to continue along those lines, or she should stop. Solicitor?
Thank you. Through the chair, as I stated earlier, these are allegations that have been made against the city, which are in dispute, and a claim has been made against the city. So my preference is that this not be litigated in public.
All right. So.
The public is only hearing one side of the dispute,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
So, Colleen, I asked you to wrap it up and not talk about the litigation and what your request is, if the city would like to,
Chair, may I get some clarification
Yes.
first here, please? Thank you. Is the delegate to be delegating on general, with this issue in general, with the Red Hill in general, or specifically, are they allowed to be speaking about a litigation before the city of Hamilton? I just need clarification on that. If they're not allowed to, which it sounds like they're not allowed to, then this delegation should either not continue or get into territory that doesn't talk about a legal case.
okay. Well,
Can I just say something? I did not issue a city. I did what the city official asked me to do was send in a proposal for what I wanted. And at that point, it went to risk management and became a claim. I never initiated a claim. I just sent the proposal in to the city official. And then that's when things went a little bit sideways. And I don't have a lawyer and I don't have a legal issue that I'm dealing with. I'm just trying to make everybody realize that the issue here should be dealt with, because we were all told that we would have a good quality of life.
Okay. Councillor Wilson, please.
Looking for some procedural guidance. I thought I heard the delegate say submission to risk has been given. So there is a process overseeing that. Yes, okay, thank you. Second thing is, was the delegate provided some counsel on the permitted parameters of delegation, such as it's, I'll end it there. Thank you, through the chair.
Through the chair, the delegate was advised that she should speak to the matters at hand that she said she was going to delegate about, which I believe was health and safety of the Red Hill Valley.
Okay, so
So not matters pertaining to a particular claim. Thank you.
thank you. So you only have a couple of minutes left. I would ask you to just say what the problem is with your house and the noise and the circumstance, but and wrap it up, please. It's a part of the claim. Okay, so.
Dealing with myself.
Okay, so I do not know if there's a claim or not. Solicitor, is there a claim on this file?
Through the chair, the delegate has made a claim against the city with respect to noise and vibration issues specific to her property.
Okay, so we got confirmation. that
Noise,
there
air,
is.
sorry, through the chair, sorry, noise, air, and vibrations specific to her property.
So I just want to say thank you for coming, and we will, because of this claim, we cannot let you continue. And I appreciate you coming and hope it gets resolved.
May I ask a question? Like, when is this claim going to be dealt with?
That I do not know.
Okay. I appreciate it, through the chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for coming. Okay, we're going to move on to 6.4, Pierre Roy, respecting report, PW 25055, automated speed enforcement enhancement. And this is citywide, in person.
Madam Chair and members of the Public Works Committee. I anticipate needing about 6 minutes total to just kind of get it to a
Okay.
point that I think is good, if that's all right.
That's okay?
Okay, great. So I don't have a presentation, or slides, just me speaking. Hopefully that is all good. And yeah, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Pierre Roy. I'm a resident of Ward 3. I'm pleased to be here today to discuss the contents of the report 25055 and Hamilton's automated speed enforcement program. I've done a lot of research in preparation for this presentation, including reviewing about 5 years' worth of staff reports on the matter and the collision statistics, and looking into what other municipalities are doing to support their Vision Zero goals. As my research has expanded, the message that I wanted to convey today has shifted. I initially wanted to discuss how 4 more cameras isn't enough to get us to where we need to be, how we need to be bolder to address the issues of speeding in our city, and bring on even more cameras to support our effort for safer streets. I still feel this way. I still feel that 4 more cameras isn't enough. A total of 8 cameras rotating every 3 months across Hamilton's 6,482 lane kilometers of paved lanes is not enough to address our Vision Zero goals. Earlier this year, we only had 2 cameras, so this is a step in the right direction. It's difficult to find a metric to compare the use of ASC across cities in Ontario. The best metrics I could come up with are population, land mass, and number of lane kilometers. Waterloo Region turns out to be a very similar, surprisingly close comparative to Hamilton on these points. By the end of the year, they will operate 27 cameras on local and regional roads. They've also established their own administrative penalty center, or administrative penalty processing center, to reduce costs and increase control in their region. Their mid-year report details how they've issued nearly 56,000 tickets, with 73% being already paid and only 6% being escalated to screening reviews. They anticipate collecting $9.8 million in ticket revenue by the end of the year, with roughly half going to operating costs and the remaining $5 million being returned to the community to implement road safety initiatives. This brings me to the new focus of my presentation, reinvestment in our communities. Improving road safety has always been the driving factor for implementing ASC across cities in Ontario. That's why many cities like Hamilton adopted a Vision Zero plan that includes strategies like evaluation, engineering, enforcement, education, and engagement. Most municipal ASC programs are revenue positive, with net income being used to fund roadway safety initiatives to reduce speeding and increase public safety. This is generally how the program is sold to the public and why most people do support ASC programs. However, in my research, I haven't been able to find any indication that Hamilton is doing this. The report before you today shows that the ASC, or the Automatic Traffic Enforcement Reserve Fund, has $4.8 million in available funds to support roadway safety initiatives. This account has been flushed with cash for several years now. The most recent reserve report that I could find online shows that at the end of 2022, this reserve fund had more than $6.25 million in available funding. It's upsetting to see so much money collected and allocated for the express purpose of roadway safety measures sitting idle in a municipal bank account while our roads remain dangerous, hostile, and deadly. The reserve report shows that the account is estimated to have accrued about $300,000 in interest to the end of 2024. Hamilton police data show that in this time frame, there have been 25 fatalities and over 24,000 collisions on our roads. This is the cost of inaction. The biggest payout of this fund is the annual Vision Zero budget of $1.6 million. However, only about a third of that goes to engineering measures such as street design and system analysis. The Vision Zero action plan calls for the implementation of 5 priority safety projects yearly. I have not been able to identify what these projects are, but I can tell you what they should be. The action plan calls for prioritizing high-volume, high-collision locations. The Ward 3 Neighborhood Complete Streets report shows that 55% of vulnerable user collisions occurred on arterial roads, but these were outside the scope of that neighborhood study, which only focused on collector and local roads. We don't appear to have a coordinated plan for mitigating the high speed and often fatal collisions that occur on our dangerous arterial roads. These aren't just King and Main Street, they include Gage, Sanford, Victoria, Wilson, and Cannon. These aren't local expressways. People live on these roads. There are schools and parks and businesses on these roads. People are forced to cross mid-block because of the lack of mid-block crosswalks. I live on a major arterial road, and from what I see every day, it's a miracle there aren't more collisions. I recall earlier this summer, there was a discussion about road diet and lowering the speed on Wentworth in front of Cathedral to 40. There's no reason we can't start doing this alongside physical traffic calming measures on our other major arterial roads. The improvements on Cannon, with the planters separating the bike lanes from traffic, has a tremendous traffic calming effect. Even though it's limited to 50, you feel like driving 40. This is a great example of our progress. If the City of Hamilton embraces an ASC system as similarly extensive as the region of Waterloo, we could have up to $1 million a year to spend on our 5 priority projects. This will create a more livable, vibrant, equitable, and safer city, one where everyone feels comfortable on our roads no matter how they use them or what neighborhood they live in. My biggest takeaway is that we have a general action plan, but we don't seem to have a detailed implementation plan. We know generally what our goals are, but we don't know how to prioritize them. We have a lot of money available, it seems, but we don't seem to be spending it on making our streets safer. We are making progress. We did some quick and cost-effective measures on King and Main a few years ago that made a dent, but we aren't done yet. Doubling our ASC program is a start, and hopefully we will soon be able to launch our administrative penalty system to allow for further program expansion. But at the end of the day, we need to start investing the proceeds of our enforcement program on real roadway safety measures for our most dangerous roads. From an equity perspective, this means starting with our most marginalized communities, where residents don't have the opportunity to come to City Hall to advocate for change in their communities. We need to be proactive and on our implementation in areas where the data shows historical collisions and incidents and not operate on a complaint system alone, which favors the loudest and most well-resourced residents. I truly believe that a proactive, actionable, and equitable roadway safety plan is one of the biggest and best legacies this council can provide for this city, and it's something that we can all get behind. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you again for delegating such an important matter. So you have Councillor Nan with some questions.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Pierre, for coming in and for delegating today. It's always been a pleasure to engage with you and your inquiries with my office, and I really appreciate the thoroughness with which you've considered your delegation today. So if I could, to summarize, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so please feel free to correct me. In terms of your delegation, what I'm hearing loud and clear is that, one, you're advocating for, you're raising your voice as a resident that perhaps the municipality needs to consider more ASEs, and secondarily, that the funds that have been generated from the fees of the ASE be allocated to a detailed implementation plan as it relates to our Vision Zero. Did I summarize it in terms of their two central points?
Yeah, I think so. And the biggest thing is prioritizing the most, effective measures. The neighborhood reports came out, or I heard about them and requested them, but they don't include arterial roads or I guess it's collector and local. And in the Ward 3 report, 55% of vulnerable user collisions were on arterial roads, and I can't seem to find any coordinated study or strategy for arterial roads, and there's a lot of arterial roads in Ward 3. I did a little study, I looked at it. Official plan designated neighborhoods on arterial roads, there's about 25 linear kilometers, so including each side of the road or one side where it's only one side, where there's an official plan designated neighborhood on a major or minor arterial road, and those wouldn't be considered in that study because those are neighborhoods, but they're not on local or collector roads. There are also
That's right,
neighborhoods or people who live on houses, that aren't neighborhoods. So where I live, it's not designated a neighborhood, but people still live there. It's designated higher use, but so it's not just about the official plan designation. It's the whole roadway, right? And it speaks to economic vitality of our communities. If our roadways are hostile, our small businesses or our medium businesses can't thrive on those corridors.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Councillor?
And you also referenced, if I could through you, Chair, the arterial roads and not limiting our interventions, if you will, from a safety and, as you mentioned just recently in your last comments, from an economic viability and support mechanism or goal, that reducing traffic along those roads or in implementing safety features shouldn't be limited to the classification of the arterial road. It should be based on the outcome that the municipality is seeking? Just to clarify.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of data that the city has at their disposal showing historical collisions, and they have 85th percentile speeding data. I can't access it, but it exists. And the numbers can be put together to find where there are problems. You can see it, you can be out in the streets and understand it, but to limit our action to neighborhoods at this point when the predominant amount of issues are on the major arterials, and if we're looking to be prudent with the use of our funds, targeting the most effective and lowest cost measures first is the best strategy. And that's what we did early on with the quick implementation measures on Main and King. But I think that as we wait for more things to happen on those roads, there are some other lower hanging fruit that we can still address. Maybe that was an earlier summer thing, but there's still things we can look at too.
I appreciate you coming in today. Thank you, Pierre.
Thank you, Councillor Nan. Now we have Councillor McMeekin, please.
Yes, hi, Mr. Roy. Roy, right?
Pierre, nice to meet you.
Listen, I really appreciate you coming. I appreciate anybody who does the kind of homework you've obviously done, and I'm wondering, because I'm fundamentally in agreement with you, particularly when it's cost effective, and one of the biggest issues in my ward, which is we have major arterial roads, but we also have rural roads that are just a a disaster in terms of big trucks speeding and, a mobile camera there for a month with rotating up to rural roads would probably significantly impact that in terms of public safety. I'm wondering if you would commit to making your notes available to us, to me in particular, because I found your statistical analysis quite fascinating. And I just generally want to make the point that I concur. I am publicly on record of calling for at least a quadrupling of speed cameras. 54% of the calls I get in my ward are around traffic and speeding. So it's a very significant issue and one that resonates fundamentally very well with the constituency I'm privileged to represent. So thank you for coming in, and I'd love to see your notes if you could make
for
those
sure.
available.
Thank you, Councillor Van Beeken. I'd be pleased to share them. There's a couple other things that I found that were interesting, but I didn't have a chance to include in my writing. But even, for example, Hamilton Police Service, the tickets that they've issued year over year have gone down tremendously to about 9,000 tickets last year, whereas they were at like 30,000 the year before. And while our ASC has gone up slightly, the total number of tickets issued has gone down. So for example, 2022 to 2024, for example, in 2022, there was a total of 39,000 tickets between ASC and Hamilton Police, whereas in 2024, there was only a total of 29,000. So the 25% more tickets in 2022 compared to 2024, and there was also 25% more collisions in 2024 compared to 2022. And,
Seems counterintuitive. Can you speculate on why that is?
Maybe I didn't say it clearly. There was a very similar number, 25% less tickets issued in 2024 and more collisions in 2024. So as the tickets go down, speeding goes up or collisions go up. I mean, there's more factors to this, but it's kind of stayed true in some of the numbers I was looking at.
Why do you think that's happening?
The numbers are going up?
More collisions and less enforcement. Why do you think that's happening?
Well, when I spoke with a great sergeant at Hamilton Police when I made an inquiry about enforcement, he spoke to how strained they were in terms of resources. They are. He did say that traffic enforcement is important. It does allow them to explore other things like outstanding warrants and if there are other reasons why somebody is evading police. But he said that they don't have the resources all the time to do that, and their staffing doesn't permit it, so they try. But I know that there was a traffic enforcement division created. At both times I was passed on to just a general local dispatch or local division. But I mean, when there's a lower presence in police, then people get the message that it's okay. And when there's not an extensive enforcement regimen, then people begin to slip.
I hear you loud and clear and really appreciate your comments. Thanks.
Thanks.
Well, thank you, Pierre. I don't think I have anyone else, but I thank you for coming and delegating. Now we will receive all the delegates at once, so raise of hands to receive. And who's the seconder? Is it Ivo? Oh, we don't have a seconder? Okay, who's the mover? Councillor McMeekin, Councillor Wen? Thank you. And show of hands, everyone? Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item 7, items for information. First of all, may I have a mover and a seconder to put the item 7.1 and 7.2 on the floor? And Councillor Beatty, before Councillor Beatty, did you want to ask a question?
I did.
Yes,
Sorry.
I forgot. So I should have written down. Councillor Beatty.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. So question, and I've got the opportunity to have the director here. Just as an overarching statement to the delegation that we heard previously, I do want to recognize that this has been an ongoing issue for this community for a number of years, predating my coming to office. The Lakewood Beach community, which is kind of the combination of Lakewood Landing and the Community Beach community, which is difficult to say because it says community twice. all of you will recall when we did the bus tour, the famous bus tour, and I think I pointed very quickly from the QEW and said, over there, there's a problem. And we've been working on it in the background since. Unfortunately, because these are all preliminary and there's a lot of moving parts, publicly, there isn't a whole lot to show for it as of today. But as a jumping off point from the delegate, I will ask a question for the Director of Transportation, just to maybe highlight some of the conversations that we've been having, where we are in terms of the phasing of some of the opportunities to make improvements in this community, and any milestones or next steps that are upcoming. We can put that all on the public record. I'm sure Robert is watching from home, so we can have that public conversation about where we are in the process and where we see ourselves moving.
Great. Director Ryle?
Good afternoon, Carolyn Ryle, Director of Transportation, through the chair. So thank you, Councillor, for the conversation or the question and the ability to speak a little bit further today in front of committee. So it is fair to say it has been one of your top priorities in addition to safety within your ward, and it has been a cross collaboration that's been going on between transportation, our active transportation group, as well as our planning teams. So there are other directors here today that have been actively involved in those conversations. So there have been a number of steps that have proceeded, even though we haven't had implementation, we'll say, in a lot of the areas out there, and that there is quite a bit of active planning. We're dealing with rural cross sections that have their complexities behind them. So whether it's drainage, conservation areas, we're dealing with MTO, we're dealing with development. There's a lot of different variables that are happening out in your ward specifically. What I am pleased to say is that with your continual push and a lot of conversations that I've been having with staff and our interrelation and conversations with MTO and others, we have been able to advance those in some of the areas to deal with preliminary designs, and then also to put some capital planning into 2026 and other future years to help with the implementation of whether it's multi-use paths or sidewalks in your ward. With regards to Francis Avenue in particular, we did have a conversation. We are looking at doing a phasing approach in 2026. Again, there are some nuances we're still dealing with conservation authorities and others, which I've already briefed you on. But the positive note is we are making some initial steps in these rural areas and working again with many other directors that are up here today and outside of here on how we can advance the safety of the AT component in your ward. So there will be work starting in 2026, and there is some active stuff that's already been happening in your ward already.
Thank you. Quick follow-up question, and I alluded to it during my questions of the delegate. I learned over the weekend through talking with some community members that there was an actual delegation that did come here in 2016, and they were seeking some assistance from the city and working through some of these problems, and unfortunately, it got lost. I'm wondering, number one, if we're able to go back and find that original direction, and then use that as part of the jumping off point to ensure that we are honoring the original wishes of the community, number one, but also number two, because it's been a 9-year gap between the community's initial ask and where we are now. And I saw you nodding your head earlier when we were talking about community engagement, just being able to go back, have a conversation with the community and ensure that some of the original points that were brought up 9 years ago are refreshed and we're bringing everybody along at the same speed.
Director Royale.
Through the chair. So that's something definitely, Councillor, we can go back and see if I can find a record with regards to that, and we're happy to bring that forward. I do think, where we are today in 2025, having the engagement piece with the community is probably a very good starting point with us. We have been discussing many different opportunities with your office. So I think getting us all landed on the same page with the work we're doing to brief that group and then how we're moving forward, I think is a good starting place, irrespective if we can find the 2026 or not, or the 2016, sorry. But we can start at least with that, and then if they have any other additional information, we can take that away as well.
Thank you. One final follow-up.
No problem. You got all the time.
All right, perfect. I'll use it.
Yes.
There was a specific reference made to the truck route, and that the Grays Road overpass is a connected part of the city's recently updated truck master plan in terms of where trucks are permitted to go and not go. It is a constant pressure point, I'll call it. And particularly, and this isn't planning committee, but a lot of us do sit on both, we recently approved a new residential redevelopment and densification application that is kind of in the middle of that truck route. And it highlights, I think, that at some point when we are converting our lands from one use to another, the appropriateness of having trucks continuing through those areas, and how do we not wait for a full comprehensive review and perhaps drill down on a specific conversation. I see Director Malloy, and I know that I've had conversations with, what do I call you now, Brian? The former director, Brian? I don't know, whatever it is. We've had conversations about the starting point, but we do have residents watching today that are very keen and interested. Where will we be able to engage in a quicker conversation about the appropriateness of having trucks running through these changing neighborhoods? Through the chair.
So through the chair, Steve Malloy, Acting Director of Transportation Planning and Parking. I think, Councillor, that's a challenging area due to the location of this on the other side of the QEW, the location of those businesses that require to get back out onto the QEW and go Toronto bound. I think in this particular instance, I think there's a behavioral issue that we can work with Transportation Division on solving what's currently a free flow condition, that they come north on Grays Road and there's no stop control there, or at previously Drake's, now Parkledge. So I think that's something that perhaps in the interim we can have a conversation with Transportation Division to improve that free flow condition and that behavior. And then take another look at when we're looking at the truck route system, it's really a system to take a route off here and there. It has a larger impact. So I think in terms of the immediate neighborhood impact, if we can address the issue of the free flow condition, that might be one step in the right direction before we take a more holistic view of the system itself.
Okay, so I think I understand the answer, but it sounds like at some point we will have to address the fact that there are no commercial industrial properties on the north side of the QEW. There is no truck route east of Park Edge. The truck route basically starts at Park Edge and goes to Centennial. So eventually we're going to have to atone for that, and we're going to have a deeper conversation about the appropriateness of the truck route on the north side of the QEW, and perhaps redirect that traffic on the south side away from these new residential areas, which are increasingly dense. And it sounds like we're able to do that. Don't necessarily have a timeline from you, but I see a willingness to engage in those conversations, I would say more quickly than not. I think that's all of my questions, unless, Steve, you have any more responses.
Anything to add? Okay,
Okay.
good.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it.
Important conversation, for sure. We have Councillor Kassar, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to build on and support Councillor Beatty's comments and on the delegation. And I've shared this before from a Strong Towns point of view in terms of public investment and how to support the community. It goes, humbly observe where people in the community struggle. That's been put before us today, and it sounds like it was put before this committee of different councillors 9 years ago. Ask the question, what's the next smallest thing we can do to address that struggle? Our delegate today, Robert, had suggested a number of things, saying, I just need something. And understanding that it's complex and there are many significant things that may need to be done. But the third step would be to do that thing and do it now, and then finally repeat it. So it doesn't mean it's a final solution. It means that do something small that can show the community progress and make some kind of difference. Because I can understand how it's frustrating to have 9 years ago, someone had been here and feel like nothing's happening. And like I said, I get that other priorities happen, to do a proper assessment and evaluation, dealing with conservation authorities and hydrology, whatever, I get it. But what I would stress for us to focus on trying to do is do small things, small interventions that can be done quickly, cheaply, while we're waiting and figuring out a permanent solution. So I think this is just a great example here where we could, if we wanted to, do something small, whether that just is knock down sticks or planters or something. Not trying to solve this particular issue, but it just illustrates the point where, yeah, we want to do something permanent and we got to do it properly and there's process, but we can observe, we can ask the question, what could be done? We can do that thing, do it now, and then repeat it. So.
That is excellent. Actually, I was appreciative of Robert, how he said, just something, give me something. And I was wondering if I could give the chair, I don't know if I want to ask a question. Can we do something like Councillor Kassar suggested right now to Director Rael?
Through the chair, so I'm going to take it away and we'll review with staff to see what we can do. But the division, in many cases, will implement what they can now. Appreciating longer-term strategy has design, often a large capital component to it, and it takes years to implement. So the division does work closely with all the wards on things that we can implement now, and we'll do the same here as we continue to work with the councillor on something we might be able to implement this year. But again, we do have plans in effect for 2026 with regards to whether it's sidewalks or a multi-use path on this specific street, again, in collaboration with working with the councillor in the ward office.
Thank you. Thank you again. All right. Councillor Beattie, did you want to come back on?
Second time, very quickly.
No
Just to
problem.
drill down on, if there had been something that we could have done, we would have already done it. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful in any way to the comments, but the complexities that were noted by the director, where we have, we've allowed for, not necessarily us, but previously, it has been allowed for hodgepodge development to occur without any overarching plan on how to integrate it all. And that's what's left us with curbs that literally force people out onto the road. Parts where there are wide shoulders that could accommodate, but you have trucks driving into them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of nuance here, and that is taking a little longer than usual to bring something cohesive together, but I am 100% confident, particularly given the conversation around here. I think that we were even talking about being able to bring something forth to this committee in the third quarter, fourth quarter of 2025, seeking direction to move ahead on some of these things. We're going to get there, but I do really appreciate the affirmation from the committee on this. It's all good stuff. Appreciate it.
2026 is around the corner, so. All right, thank you. We're going to move on, item 7, and it's items for information. May I please have a mover and a seconder to put the item 7.1 and 7.2 on the floor? Councillor Kassar and Councillor Wilson. Thank you. So 7.1 is Hamilton Water Quality Management System Annual Summary Report. And I was wondering if the Director, Nick Winters, would you like to have a quick overview? So then if we have questions, we'll quickly ask them.
That would be excellent. Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair, Nick Winters, Director of the Hamilton Water Division. And very briefly, I would say that the report before committee today largely speaks for itself and identifies that the city's quality management systems for our drinking water system, for our wastewater systems, are suitable, adequate, and effective. I do want to highlight that this is a report that committee would typically receive in June each calendar year, but it was delayed this year as a result of the labor disruption that impacted the city here as well as Hamilton Water. And I will mention, just on that note, that the strength of our quality management system was really demonstrated through that labor disruption, because it's this backbone of procedures and documentation that were largely relied upon to train redeployed workers to operate in our systems. So certainly a very valuable wealth of knowledge at our disposal and serving the city and our community. I did also want to highlight, just looking back on 2024, that everyone is aware we had a cybersecurity incident in 2024 that impacted our systems, including our document management systems. And one of the significant accomplishments from 2024 achieved by the quality management staff in Hamilton Water was recreating a document system from available records that not only served Hamilton Water and the city to continue the operation of our water, wastewater, stormwater utility systems, but also was robust enough to support a third-party on-site audit, which happened in May of 2024, and using a recreated document management system, Hamilton Water was able to satisfy that audit of our drinking water quality management system with no findings, which led to the reaccreditation or reissuance of our drinking water licenses for our 5 systems. So certainly a lot of great work happening under our quality management umbrella. Manager Charlene Mackay, who is behind me here, is our manager of compliance and regulations, as well as our systems management representative for our drinking water quality management system and wastewater quality management system. And she and all the quality staff in Hamilton Water have been doing a really excellent job steering this program. Charlene and I are both available to answer any questions on the report if there are any. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director. Yes, we do have some question from Councillor Jackson, please. Oh, see, I knew I should have had a review and it will satisfy. Councillor Wang.
Thank you. This is an excellent report given all of the challenges that we've had in the last several months. I wanted to ask, how do we rank in comparison to some of the other municipalities surrounding us? Just because there was a lot of misinformation that was relayed in that water dispute, I just wanted to get on the record how we're currently doing in relation to the other municipalities around us.
So through the chair, Councillor, I'll attempt to answer your question. If I don't get at the heart of it, please feel free to ask a follow-up question. It is very difficult to rank the performance of drinking water systems from municipality to municipality for a couple different reasons. The biggest one being age of infrastructure as a comparator, size of municipality as well. I can tell you that our water, wastewater utility continues to meet or exceed all of the regulatory requirements that are applicable to a municipal utility under the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, as well as federal legislation as well. From an operational perspective, I can tell you that, yes, Hamilton has a more significant number of failures, such as water main breaks. But when you break down those types of failures based on the size of our system, things tend to normalize on a per kilometer basis. And so largely, Hamilton's water, wastewater, stormwater utility over the past 15 years has become recognized as a leader in this space. Something that I'm certainly very proud of, and hopefully our community can be proud of, knowing that the investments that are being made are having a very significant impact in the improved performance of the systems.
Thank you. As follow-up then through you, Chair, is just in Ward 4, we've had a big break, so it sucks. But at the same time, our team is doing a lot to make sure that that gets remedied. I know in the past that we've actually won awards for our water quality. I obviously feel biased, but I do think that our water tastes the best in comparison to the GTA. So I wonder, just as do we put our water through any of these competitions to kind of talk about how good our water quality is?
Director?
So through the chair, we certainly do. The last drinking water taste test I think that we entered was 2 years ago. We didn't win, unfortunately, shockingly, but I guess I would say that the taste is in the eye of the judges for that event. They didn't pick us. I think they were wrong.
Thank you. Those are all my questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. All right, so we will move on to 7.2, and this is information. No turn on red leading pedestrian cycling intervals, a signalized intersection. Director Carol Rival is here if anybody has any questions. Councillor Cretch.
Thank you very much for this report, which is just information. So I just had a few things I wanted to get ironed out. There was a statement in the report that left me a bit puzzled, and I wonder if you can clarify it. It says that this basically says, look, we reviewed a bunch of municipalities and no city does citywide no turns on red, sorry. No one does that citywide. And one of the reasons stated for why this was supported as something we shouldn't do here was that low compliance is also an issue, with studies showing that 10 to 20% of drivers disobey these rules. The opposite would seem to me if I'm using 80 or 90% compliance, right? So the opposite seems to me that most 80 or 90% are complying with these rules. Can you unpack that for me? Is there something about the compliance metrics I don't understand?
Director or?
Mike Field, Manager of Transportation Operations. That part of the report is just a summary of what those other municipalities told us. So we're just recording what those comments were from their standpoint. We are not necessarily using that information or interpreting it for our decisions. We're just providing that some of the reasoning why other municipalities said that they don't do it. That's what some of the municipalities said because of the compliance concerns that they had.
Could you comment on it though? Because I think that's why I wanted to ask you, right? So I do find it a bizarre statement to say that we have low compliance if only 10 to 20% of drivers are not complying. It would suggest to me that we have high compliance if 80% or 90% are complying. Like, I just wonder if you could unpack that statement for me, because it just immediately smacks of strangeness to me.
Yeah, through the chair, it's a good point, because the opposite you can just make that statement in a positive way too, that there's more people complying to it than not. I'm not too sure why they framed it like that to us, but we were just regurgitating the way they were framing it to us. I think there's an expectation that we want drivers to be 100% compliance. So they were noting that part of their struggles were with the compliance in general of when they're using those measures as a reason why they don't possibly want to use them for a citywide perspective, because they have compliance challenges within their municipalities. But that's information that came from those municipalities, not from us directly. So it's hard for me to comment exactly why they stated it in the way that they did.
If I could just unpack this one layer further though, and then I have two more questions. I think it's interesting because, of course, when we talk about compliance and enforcement, those are obviously the weakest tools that we have at our disposal to be able to do things. And this has come up today, so I thought it was worth saying that the only way we're going to achieve compliance is through design, ultimately, and through intervention of more street safety and safety mechanisms to ensure compliance. We're not going to have 100% compliance without excellent design. Could you comment on that? Because I think it's at the heart of a lot of the things we talk about here at Public Works, is this notion or idea that driver behavior will magically change, or if a police officer happens to be lucky enough to catch someone doing something, then that's the ultimate solution, is more luck catching people.
Manager? Yeah.
Through the chair, that's a good point. We can't rely on police enforcement to be everywhere all the time. We want drivers to follow the rules of the road as they're required to do. Within the report, we have some reference to LED blank out signs, which is a measure that we can at least, if there's a visibility issue with those signs, that there's a different way that we can communicate that to drivers to make sure that they know about it. The other thing too that's part of that is I think there's a lot of driver frustration and where we lose compliance and we're putting measures where they're not really justified to begin to put with. So let's use a rural intersection that has very low volumes to implement a no turn on red restriction there, where there's no pedestrian activity, no cyclist activity, no sightline issues. From a driver's perspective, it's going to be very frustrating to face that, because they're going to come to the intersection and say, this makes no sense to me. Why should I have to stop for a red light and not turn? So I'm just going to turn anyway. So that's part of why we're not leaning towards a citywide approach, but more towards an approach of looking at where they're the most beneficial, where they make the most sense, and then couple that with, say, those LED blank out signs that in the middle of the night, if you're driving down Main Street and there's no pedestrian traffic, no other cars around you, and you're facing a no turn on red, there's a possibility that driver's going to say, well, there's nothing around, I'm going to turn anyway. The way an LED blank out sign would be is that we wouldn't run that restriction at that time of day. We would only run it when it's most beneficial. So there's some things in the report where, from a compliance perspective, we're working on making sure we're applying those measures in the places where they have the most benefit, not putting them where they don't provide benefit and that residents and drivers can't understand why they're there. And then those factors of using technology to reinforce the messaging for drivers to make sure they know that that restriction exists, but also to not run it exclusively all the time in parts of the day that don't really make a difference, that they're not of benefit.
Thanks for that.
That's good.
So my second and third questions are coming up. So you said here in the default implementation criteria part of the report, one of the parts of the report, it talks about scoring or evaluation. So I see through all the appendices, you've got some good scoring criteria there. You figure out implementation timelines based on scoring. If things score a certain amount, you say, okay, well, I will install something within a year. If it's a lower score, you're going to install it later. So, but you have one comment here that says NTOR, or no turn on red restrictions, should be implemented by default without the need for scoring or evaluation. And so I wonder if you could just unpack that a bit, because that, I know that what's happening is you're saying, well, hey, if there's a high-risk conflict condition at this intersection, and we have that noted somewhere, but I wonder if those kind of conditions are known for all intersections. Like, I'm wondering what the gap is. Is there work that has to be done to identify places? And that is a kind of scoring, is it not?
Oh, it's
Through the chair to the
manager.
councillor. Yeah, there's two conditions of the guideline. One is implement without doing any evaluation. Those are the locations where we can say without doing any evaluation that we need that measure there, that it's going to be most benefit. So you'll see a sight line where there's no sight line, say a building's right up to the corner and you can't see around the corner. We're going to put no turn on red there from that standpoint. Where there's very high pedestrian volumes, where there's the most benefit, we're going to put those there. We don't need to evaluate it. And then for everything else, it's going to go through that evaluation criteria that's really looking to gauge the level of risk from a vulnerable road user perspective, and then making sure we're prioritizing those locations that are of the highest risk, don't fall into the base implementation where we're not doing that evaluation. But you're right, there has to be some information that's leading us to select the default category. And we have a lot of that information already on hand with some of those. It's not all bullets that have to be, it's any of those bullets. So for example, if it's a sightline issue, bang, right away, no right turn on red. If it's high pedestrian environment, so we don't need to go and do a ped count to know that downtown core there's high peds. We would just apply those using that default criteria. And that's I think the essence of that, and later on you'll see with the LPI, LBI framework, it has those default things where we say, we don't need to think about this. We know that this is going to be of high benefit. We're just going to do it. And then for everything else, we'll do that evaluation.
My last question is about timing, and when you get to section 3, it talks about applying the criteria in the application process and so on, and it says my least favorite phrase, as soon as practicable. I think that word should be outlawed, frankly, but I think I don't understand what that means, and I wanted to ask you to unpack that in terms of how this works in a priority. I've seen some of the equity considerations in the report. I think you could probably expand on those, but I guess I just want to understand, let's just say you went for a walk around the downtown core in a circle. You could easily spot them. How are you prioritizing this, and when is as soon as practicable translated into a time frame?
So through the
Manager
chair
Field.
to the councillor, thanks. That's a good question, and there's a good answer. For something like no turn on red, there's not a lot of barriers to implementing that. So there wouldn't be, if we identified something that we need to do immediately apart from passing the bylaw that's required, it's really easy to install the sign. But with leading pedestrian intervals and leading cyclist intervals, we may actually need to do partial reconstruction of a traffic signal. So while we would love to install it immediately, there has to be some physical work that has to happen at that intersection. So that's where that soon as practicable term comes into play. We're going to do it as quickly as we can, considering the factors and the constraints at that specific location, but we're going to move as fast as we can, considering those things. And those things that slow us down are really for LPIs, LBIs is like full reconstruction of traffic signals, the worst case. So we have very bad infrastructure. We don't have the right technology at the intersection to implement those things, and we have to plan out fund that new intersection, do the detailed design and construction, which can be a multi-year process to get through there. That's why that's in there. So we still recognize that it's a priority. We're going to do it as fast as we can, but we can't commit to do it within 1 year, for example, because there's other factors that won't allow us to do that.
Thank you very
Your
much.
5 minutes is up. Is that was the last question, or?
Yeah, I'm just going to thank him briefly.
Okay.
Thanks very much. As the mover or seconder, I can't remember of this motion. I really appreciate seeing it back here, and I appreciate the fact that you've got these different guidelines and standards so that it's easy for us as councillors to be able to say, okay, to residents, here's what the standards are, and here's how they're going to be improved over time, but here's what the standards are today. So people know what they are, and they have that transparency. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Maureen Wilson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to staff for this report. Strong supporter of the no turn on red and the leading peds and the cycling intervals. I'm wondering if I have some latitude, given the time of year and the bundle that these represent in addressing an identified ongoing problem, which are our intersections. If I could just ask a few questions about these and these standards and how they relate to and inform the placement of crossing guards. May I do that?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
I'd like to know.
Thank you. So this month marked the back to school. And so I just want to set the table with some foundational questions before moving on to the bundle that is represented in this information report. If I may, through the chair to staff, could you share with me or this committee the total number of guard placements in the city and the number of vacant placements, if we have that information available at hand right now?
Thank you.
Through the chair, Steve Malloy, Acting Director of Transportation Planning and Parking. I know that currently we have approximately 36 vacant school crossing guard locations. I don't have the exact number of school crossing guard locations, but I believe it's over 200.
Thank you, through the chair.
Councillor?
Thank you. Does the committee receive a report from staff at the end of school year on the number of guards that began the year, the number of guards that end the year, and any fluidity, like how many we may have lost or retained throughout the school year? Through the chair.
Director Steve?
Through the chair, we do have that information. I just don't have that information at my fingertips.
Okay, thank you. But is that information, it's not a setup, I'm just trying to remember, is it shared with Public Works Committee through the chair?
Through the chair, to my knowledge, is not shared with Public Works Committee.
Okay, thank you. Has the corporation ever done a survey or an evaluation of whether we're seeing an ongoing trend of unfulfilled spots, what that might be? Do we need to perhaps redefine, redesign guards, et cetera?
Steve?
So through the chair, informally, we have meetings with the supervisors who talk with the school crossing guards they're responsible for. I know recently some McMaster students had done some work with some school crossing guards in Ward 2. And that is something that we are working on. And my apologies, Councillor, can you repeat the second part of the question?
Thank you. So my hypothesis is that despite perhaps the last council took a stab at increasing the pay for crossing guards, it hasn't been substantial enough to solve the problem. So we're still having an ongoing problem of locations. We have 36 intersections. This corporation has identified that we have a problem with intersections, hence the bundle of interventions identified here. My question is there value in evaluating if we have a problem? Maybe we have to evaluate the problem in full. So do we split the shift? Do we do we have a look at the remuneration, those sorts of things? I'm wondering, and I think the answer was an external body did a review, but we haven't done a review, through the chair.
So through the chair, we have done a review of all the locations a few years ago in terms of attracting and retaining school crossing guards. That is something that we're an ongoing thing that we want to do continuous improvement on. In areas where we do have spare guards, they can do a split shift where they could perhaps cover 2 schools, depending on their location and the staggered commencement and dismissal times. But certainly it is something that we are looking to continue to improve on each year.
Councillor?
Thank you, Chair, for the latitude. I have another question and then a comment, if I may. What is the relationship between these bundle of initiatives and installations and that which informs the placement of guards across the city? Through the chair.
Through the chair, it's my opinion that they're complementary to each other. I know in certain situations, as the conversation regarding compliance, that is something that where 2 things could be at the same location as well. So there is an exposure index that identifies the need, depending on the number of crossing students, but there are also other factors, environmental factors that could be applied for a school crossing guard, and then the physical measures, again, depends on the individual intersection and the conditions surrounding that Transportation Division could speak more toward.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to Acting Director Malloy. Chair, there was a study done, and it was submitted earlier this year, I believe, by a group of McMaster students, and they interviewed 18 guards. And those guards identified 2 primary reasons which made their life miserable and/or caused them to rethink whether they wanted to do this. And the 2 things, the primary thing was danger. Danger in terms of infrastructure, ineffective infrastructure, making the crossing unsafe for students, and danger as a consequence of driver behavior, speeding, drivers disobeying traffic laws and signage, distracted drivers, and speeding through red lights. So an advanced pedestrian it doesn't address the speeding through red lights. So guards were overall challenged with dangerous driving. And I guess at some point we have to ask ourselves, if we're not able to fill positions, maybe we have to review how we're filling those positions, how the position works, what we need to support those positions. Because it's my opinion that there is the first responsibility of this elected council is to uphold the health and safety of its residents. And furthermore, there is a particular responsibility to uphold the safety of children when they're trying to go to school. And so I would like to engage with some quiet conversation with my colleagues to say we've got to figure this out, and we can't be starting a school year with 36 vacant crossings. It's just not acceptable. It shouldn't be acceptable to us. It's not our fault, but I think we have to try and tackle this perhaps a different way, and I think we have to charge our staff in doing so. So I'll have those conversations and hope to come back with a motion to that effect. Thank you, Chair.
That's very good points. And I'm just, can I ask a question? Can I give you the chair? I'm just wondering, the 36 vacant, how do we go about attracting the guards, and do we give them training and about safety and what Councillor Wilson was talking
Through
about?
the chair, many of our guards are returning guards, so they've been working, some of them with the city, quite a number of years. There is an orientation and training that occurs before commencement. There's also the screening of guards who do apply. Not all get through the screening as well. So we want to make sure that whomever we put at service children or upstanding citizens. In terms of reaching out to attract people, there is a demographic that is typically a school crossing guard, and we have our tactics to attract more crossing guards, but that's something that we can certainly ramp up, and always looking for different ways to engage school boards and even schools to get the word out. So I think that's something I've been listening to the last, especially this time of year, things that to ramp up some of our recruitment and activities that we can improve the attractiveness of that position.
Thank you for that, because even in my ward, I've had quite a few emails about certain areas where they need it, and so I'm looking forward for your motion when it comes and getting more information. So thank you again, Councillor Wilson, and thank you, Director. We'll take the chair back. Okay, Councillor McMeekin, please. Oh, you're going to pass? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're going to, all in favor and to receive the information, everyone? Thank you. All right. Okay, we're going to go to item 9, items for consideration. Automated speed enforcement enhancement citywide. May I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Beatty, Councillor Tom Jackson, of course. Okay, we'll put it on the floor. Is there any discussion? Councillor Francis.
I just want to speak to this. I don't have any questions if that's appropriate now, or
You don't have any questions, you just want to?
want to make some comments.
Sure.
Yep. Yeah, I'm glad to see this report moving forward. My ward will be getting 2 new locations of the rotating speed cameras, one on Beach Boulevard, another one on Albright Road, which is going to address some long-standing concerns in the community. And I know they will help to calm traffic and make our streets safer, which is consistently one of the most frequent calls to my office. And I'm happy to see the number of these cameras doubling across the city. I'd like to keep building on this, because I hear quite literally on a daily basis residents from Lake Avenue, Green Hill, Quigley, or more action is needed, and it would be really nice in the future if we had at least 1 camera per ward that we could rotate if necessary, or where necessary, rather. And this is a really good step in the right direction here. I'm very supportive of this, and honestly, if you don't want a ticket, just don't speed.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Francis. Councillor Tom Jackson, please. Ward 6.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Pauls. Obviously, very, very strongly supportive. I'm glad that Director Rael, well, she didn't just have to listen to me, but if this body recalls in the last 3 budget cycles, and whenever she's brought Transportation Division reports to us about the ASC cameras, I've said, Director Rael, please bring even more recommendations of increasing the number. You'll at least have 1 strong supporter from the East Mountain and myself. Just as it was with the red light camera program, started around 2000, started with 1 camera with 6 municipalities. We're over 50 now. It's been most effective, above all, Chair Pauls, from public safety standpoint. And again, the revenue is brought in from those that violate the red light cameras. And I'm so glad that this municipality, and a couple of council terms ago, we embarked on the photo radar camera as well, the ASC cameras, and I'm delighted to see a doubling recommendation here as well. I need to say this, and Director Rael, I know her eyebrows will raise, and Manager Field will probably hold his forehead, but I'm going to say this. I wish this ASC company, whoever they are, in this modern technological world, I know you all can't believe I'm saying this, in this modern technological world and all the modern digital equipment that is reduced in size and even captures more of what it needs to capture, I am very frustrated that this company still has these big, large, gray boxes that sit about 5 feet tall on a city sidewalk or boulevard that are open and just waiting for those that don't like the photo radar cameras to vandalize them, to damage them. It's a waste, in my humble opinion, of both time, effort. I'm going to presume that any damages are under warranty with the company, but I'd like to have, even though it's not Director Rael's equipment, we contract this company, but for goodness sakes, Chair Pauls, I hope staff have passed along messages to this company, get a small camera, put it up on a hydro pole, on a city tree where it's inaccessible to those that want to damage and vandalize this public equipment. Through you, Chair Pauls, maybe to the director for a comment, please.
Director Ryle, can we do that?
Carolyn Ryle, Director of Transportation, through the chair. So thank you, Councillor Jackson, for your comments on that. So I just want to reassure everyone around the Horseshoe that in speaking with the councillor, we have brought this back to the steering committee. City of Hamilton is not the only municipality that is dealing with this. There was a recent indicator in the news on the weekend about City of Toronto having one that's been cut down 7 times. So it's not something that's just happening in the City of Hamilton. It's happening elsewhere. But I want to reassure you, we have brought it back to the steering committee led by City of Toronto, and that is a conversation that's being had with the vendor. To answer the question on whether we're able to put our own cameras out there under the regulation, we're not allowed to do that right now. But it is conversation that's at the table, obviously, like I said, with the City of Toronto and with the vendor, and any regulation changes, if such, would be at a future time. But we are investigating that right now, Councillor.
Thanks, Director Ryle. I'm glad it's on your radar with your steering committee and the company Chair Pauls. Can I also ask through you, Director Ryle, I know that you live by warrants. However, I would hope that, again, you and your team would be open-minded to grassroots community input and recommendations. People who live on a particular stretch of road, mostly major arterial roads, like in my ward, the Upper Kenilworth, Upper Gauges, Upper Ottawas, Fennel, Mohawks, Mountain Brow Boulevard, where they are just constantly at my door screaming, pleading, imploring for an ASE camera to be installed for a period of time. Can I hope and believe that your team at least takes community input under advisement, understanding you live by warrants, but just like we do with warrants with always stops and speed cushions, at the end of the day, the professional advice may be, but this body can say otherwise if necessary. That's my last question, Chair Pauls.
Director?
Through the chair. So Councillor, good question. So just a couple things to note. So every request that comes in right now to the division, we evaluate it. Like you were mentioning, whether it's a warrant or whatever we're doing with regards to other things that we're trying to deal with throughout the community. So we evaluate any request and every request that comes in through the division. We have evaluated, just for everyone's awareness, over 600 locations with regards to speeding to try and put them into the ASC framework. So that's how many that have been evaluated to date, as we prioritize 100 plus locations for the program right now through the designation of community safety zones. And the other thing I just wanted to note is that the important point that we wanted to bring forward with the report is turning to more of an adaptive framework, which allows the flexibility versus the fixed model that we were using, that we identified locations when they were going to be there, whereas what we're wanting to do now is identify those locations but not have fixed schedules. So it allows us the flexibility for locations that are coming up that we would investigate that may have a serious situation we're trying to address through speeds and working with Hamilton Police Service as our partners. But if we need to put an ASC out there, we now have that flexibility versus having to write a report to come back to committee to seek approval. So that is the benefit of the model that we are proposing today before committee and seeking the approval and the endorsement.
Much appreciated, Director Ryle's summation comment, Chair Pauls. We know we unfortunately can't have a police officer 24/7 at all of our major arteries where sadly reckless, careless, speeding, driving has occurred. And it seems to be, unfortunately, on an increase at times. And so I've just been a big backer again of the ASC photo radar camera program because it's an additional tool where police officers cannot be all the time. It's an additional tool to ensure that hopefully there's a deterrent to those that want to speed. They're going to be hit with a huge fine, and the courts, to my knowledge, are upholding all the appeals, because how do you argue with the camera evidence? Thank you, Chair Pauls.
Thank you. I'm going to have Councillor Nan next. I just got a text that she has to pick up her little one, her beautiful little girls, from school. So Councillor Nan, you're next.
Appreciate the consideration, Chair, and to my colleagues, sorry to bump anybody who might be next in line. So if I could, through you, Chair, just a note, clerical error in Appendix D. It lists Sherman Avenue as Ward 4. It's squarely in Ward 3. Don't know if we need to move an amendment, given that there's a bylaw attached to this report as well, or if that's something that we can take care of in time for council so that the final ratifying documents mention the correction there. So that's just a heads up to staff about that. And then in terms of questions, Councillor or Chair, you and the rest of my colleagues heard Delegate Roy's statements earlier. And in Pierre's comments, he mentioned a reserve account of $4.8 million up to $6.25 million related to ASE. And then made some comments about our annual Vision Zero implementation plan being at $1.6 million. I wanted to give staff a chance to respond to that and you know, is it accurate? Is there any information there that's incorrect? Because the report that we're dealing with today suggests that there's only so many funds available, and hence the recommendation is increasing the cameras in a limited way versus more of them.
Director Rayal, please.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to, we've reached out to do some finance checks just in the background, Councillor, so I'm going to have Manager Field just provide an update with regards to what we have for 2025, maybe as a starting point.
Manager Field.
Through the chair to the councillor, thanks for the question. I hope I explained this properly, but and knowing that we still have some work to do from a financial perspective, that we don't have access to all of our information right now, but in 2025, from the reserve, we expect to take $6.9 million from the reserve. The revenues that we're expecting to get back into the reserve within the same year is $6.6 million. So we're spending, we're slowly reducing. That's why you see, as the delegate mentioned, that it was a higher value, now it's a lower value because we're spending more, greater number than what we're getting back in the revenue at this moment in time. Part of the factors I'll just mention too is that there's a component of staffing that's funded out of the reserve, so we always want to be careful to make sure that we're protecting that funding, because if we drain the reserve, then we won't have money to pay for those roadway safety staff any longer. And then part of the equation of transitioning to the administrative penalty system is that we've been preserving a component of the reserve to fund the costs of transitioning from the provincial court administration over to the APS system, which is a value of, I think, an undetermined amount at this moment, but we wanted to protect against that too. So I think $6.9 million is a significant investment just from the reserve itself, plus all of the other capital projects that we do that's not from the reserve, that is an investment in roadway safety as well. But I hope that answers your question.
It does, and so just to summarize, the reserve is as large as that is, given some of the returns that we're getting from penalties, and then it is being allocated with some buffering for clarification of staffing costs, as well as that last item that you mentioned. Thank you for that. The next question is regarding the alternatives in the report. I think it's alternative number 3 does state that there is the possibility of expanding the program with more than just 4 additional cameras. If staff could please comment on the implications of that, please.
Is it Director Rayal?
Yep, through the chair. So thank you, Councillor, for the question. So with regards to the report today, and again, just looking at the finance information, working with our colleagues in the provincial offensive court system, working with the vendor and the City of Toronto with regards to all the interrelationships we have in running the program, we came back at this time with the opportunity and the recommendation to increase it by 4. We have heard from a number of councillors what is the potential for us to increase that, and that is something that we could bring back we will say in Q1 of 2026, because we do need to, again, work with all of our other partners with regards to headcount, capacity, and just viability of getting the equipment and increasing units with the City of Toronto. So there are many other players that we do need to coordinate with, but we're always excited and eager to expand where we can. So it is something we'd be happy to bring back in Q1 of 2026. But at this time, we are able to handle with all of our counterparts the 4 additional at this time.
Thank you for that, through you, Chair. I appreciate that comment, Director. Do you need any direction from committee or council? As you know, you've got a pretty supportive committee here to expand the ASE program. Is that just something that we can anticipate in the Q1 discussion at Public Works, or is this something that you're contemplating or suggesting for the budget process?
Through the chair, so council, we're happy to work with your office if you'd like to bring something maybe to the next PWC September, I think it's the 28th, where we could have a motion in working with yourself on what we'd bring back for 2026. I was just conferring with Manager Field. I don't think we have anything specific to the budget that I'm recalling right now. So I think that's the best way to have us bring it back.
Appreciate it. We'll follow up with that. And then last question, if I could, through you, Chair. The delegate also referenced Waterloo, and we discussed this when we had a chance to talk about this in one of our monthly conversations. The region of Waterloo, recognizing it's a region, not just a municipality, currently having double the amount. They have 16 ASEs. I think they're aiming to increase that to 36, and the entire region is aiming to cover every single school zone in the entire region to 175 cameras. And their compliance stats are 63% increase in compliance with speed limits, specifically in school zones. Director, if you could just comment on, are staff aware, is the region working with a different vendor? Is that why they were able to secure so many cameras compared to our challenge working with the City of Toronto?
Through the chair, so to my understanding, Councillor, they're not working with a different vendor. It's fair to say that since this came online in 2020, there's been a lot of different phases that each of the municipalities are in. So some municipalities may be at a different point with the launch of their APS system, for example, whereas the city here, we're working again amongst many stakeholders to bring ours up in line, and those conversations are underway. So I think it just has to do, I can't talk specifically to Waterloo today, but it just has to do with regards to the different phases that some of the municipalities may be in and or other direction they maybe have been given.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. We're going to go with Councillor Alex Wilson, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, just trying to understand eligibility and process behind this. So there's 72 community safety zones today documented. I think Councillor Nan's point that there's way more school zones than community safety zones is a worthwhile one, but just starting with our 72 community safety zones citywide, are all 72 of those in the rotating list now, or is just the new additions the prioritized list? Are you able to kind of break down for 2026? Is it just what's in, I believe, Appendix D that's being prioritized, or are those being added to the list?
Director?
Through the chair, so I'll start and then I'm going to pass it over to Manager Field. So the 83 that were identified in the one appendix, they've already had ASC cycled at them for the 2-month period. The report is speaking to an additional, and I'll pass it over to Manager Field just to be more specific on the number.
Through the chair to the councillor, there is an error in the report that I'll point out in the table. It has 17 locations. In the report, it references 18 additional locations. So we're adding 18 new ones. And then back to your question about, and that brings, I think, to 100 locations. Well, under the new model, we would be, under that adaptive or flexible model, we would be returning to previous locations under that, especially ones where we had a lot of activity from a camera that showed that it was really useful in that location, return it there. So that's part of the equation that we'd be looking at, not only deploying them at new locations where they've never seen them before, but also returning to past locations too, where we know that there's a benefit to bring them back.
Thank you.
And through you, Chair, just tying into Councillor Nan's point about an update that might be coming in Q1 of 2026 about additional locations, I'm assuming that, again, we can only add ASE to places that are already designated community safety zones. So in order to add automated speed enforcement, you first have to designate as a community safety zone. Am I just correct in that order of events?
Through the chair to the councillors, two things, one or the other can exist, or both. Has to be a designated school zone or a community safety zone. or a combination of those two things together. We have some school zones that have the dual designation, but it has to be one of those two things. We can't put an AC camera without one of either a school zone or a community safety zone.
Thank you. And that list of now 100 locations with this expansion does not include every school zone, but does include every designated community safety zone. I'm just trying to understand from that short list of 100 locations, there are locations in my ward and everyone here's ward, so I'm trying not to make this ward specific, that aren't on that short list of 100. So I'm just trying to understand what the process is for automatic speed enforcement if you're not on that list of 100. Is it first having a conversation about whether this should be designated as a community safety zone, or is it designated as a school zone? And if it is designated already as a school zone, why isn't it on that list of 100 already? Like what happens to get it on that list of 100?
Through the chair to the councillor, I can't remember the exact figure, but there's somewhere greater than 200 school zones in the city, and every single one of those locations would be technically eligible to have ASE running at it. And then we have the 100 community safety zones that are there as well that we've designated. Within the appended to the report is community safety zone selection guideline, which was approved by council in 2020. That is our method to evaluate and prioritize the review of locations that would be, or at the time that we wanted to use for ASC. So that's the process that we go through. Because we have limited number of units, we want to make sure that we're putting them in places that they would serve the most benefit. So we use that community safety zone selection guideline, and Carolyn mentioned that I think it's around 690 or 650 evaluations that we've done to date. So we have a list that's built around and has the scoring for each one of those locations. And then we're looking to deploy equipment at the top scoring locations as they would be perceived to have the most benefit to receive a camera. So as we move along, we will be adding more to that list and using that list to leverage where these cameras are going to be going across the city. Like I mentioned as well, returning to past locations too that we believe that there would be a benefit. And the other remark that maybe I'll respond to, I think Councillor Jackson mentioned it, of community input or those situations that are emerging that necessarily we didn't consider before, that model has some flexibility for us to be a bit more agile to go and put a camera. And I like using the example where we identify an issue and it's related to the built form and say we need to rebuild a street to deal with a safety or speeding issue. Theoretically, what we would do is put out an AC camera in the interim between when we identify that need to when we actually reconstruct it. So there's a lot of flexibility that we can use within that new model, which would be of great benefit, I think, to the overall safety of the city when it comes to applying ASE. And I just want to note too, sorry, long-winded, the ASE is just one of the tools in the toolbox. It's not the answer to everything, but it's a tool that works well in certain applications, but not in all applications.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, just a final question from me. I think the bit that I'm still opaque on, so just really want to nail this down, is not every school zone has already gone through that Appendix B toolkit for selection. In order to go through that selection process, I've heard resident input can drive that, maybe evaluation, counselor input can drive that evaluation. But I'm just trying to clarify that if folks aren't seeing their school zone, let's say, like specific to school zone on this list, the first step is getting that ranking. Like that step one is getting ranked and getting on that list of ASE eligible locations before having a conversation about expanding ASE to that area. The first step is ensuring there's been a prioritization and evaluation and just seeking confirmation that that's not done automatically for all school zones, that it's done based on collision history, request by counselors, public input, other factors, but it's not an automatic review. Is that a correct understanding of the process?
Director?
Through the chair, that's correct, Councillor.
Okay, thank you very much.
And thank you, Councillor. We're going to go to Councillor Beatty. No, yeah, Beatty.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. A number of my questions have already been answered, but I'll just kind of reaffirm. Number one, very supportive of this. Thankful for the report coming forward. Based on some previous comments, great to hear that there's some opportunities on the horizon for, we'll call it fluidity from the current format in terms of having a very rigid warrant-based issue. Because while, I'm 100% supportive of the additions that are listed on Appendix D, it is a difficult conversation to go back to your community and say, we didn't make the cut for some reason based on those warranted things where the observations and the reality that the residents are experiencing would tell a different story. So it's good to hear that that's coming forward. I think also Manager Field made mention to previous locations will see those cameras cycle back through based on the uptick. So it's great to see that there are a number of locations in the community that I represent that have had those ASC cameras previously and will see them again moving forward. And then lastly, just to build off, I think it was Councillor Jackson was talking about the built form of the actual camera units themselves. And it sounds like there's some standardization across the province. But I'm sure that there are some opportunities, and just to kind of pinpoint one, I was driving in Fergus over the weekend and saw a school zone with an ASE camera mounted. It's about the size of an iPad, mounted underneath a traffic light. And I actually just went on to Google Maps, so you can see it there. And I'll send you a little snippet if you're interested, that there's probably some different, I'm sure that you're following it, not trying to contradict anything coming across the bench. But when we do see best practice from other municipalities, obviously we may want to investigate and see what they're doing and how does that work in relation to what we're able to offer our residents here in Hamilton, because those big gray boxes do get knocked over, painted, driven over, abused regularly. So trying to deliver this application in a format that is less subject to abuse from dissatisfied folks. I'm sure that you're always looking for those opportunities as well, so I'll pass that along. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Maureen Wilson, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So now I'm confused, given Councillor Beatty's observation when he was in Fergus, and I guess I wasn't listening intently enough. So is the technology pertaining to this service, is it standard or does it differ across the province? Per Councillor Jackson's, if we can assume a technology that is much more flexible in its application, so it's not, doesn't have to be on a flat public right-of-way, visible, look like a mailbox. I'm just trying to understand, because it sounds like there's maybe variation or not, through the chair.
Through the chair. So I appreciate the councillor bringing that forward. We're going to take that away. Mike and I were just consulting, and we're going to take a look into that. The procurement that was done was for a joint procurement that was led by the City of Toronto. So the municipalities, and there's many of them, all within Ontario, we're all involved in that joint procurement that's done with that vendor. So I'm not aware, at least at this point, to any other vendor that's being used elsewhere. Again, we're involved with the City of Toronto. It's a joint procurement in all the municipalities that are in Ontario that are operating. I'm not sure what Fergus is doing. We need to take that away.
Thank you. Councillor?
Thank you. And I'm just, again, trying to understand the whole City of Toronto issue. My recollection from the last term of council is the province said, we're willing to start this pilot to allow for these automated speed cameras, but you have to willingly opt in. And again, not trying to be dismissive, it was staff's recommendation at the time that we don't opt in because we were unsure of the pilot. And council said, no, our community has expressed a need, we're going to opt in. So I'm trying to understand the epicenter, which is Toronto, and is it because there were different opt-in phases and we're tethered to that administration because others seem to not be as tethered and are putting more cameras in because maybe they're not being frustrated by the administrative end of things, through the chair.
So through the chair, so thanks, Councillor, for the question. So what we're seeing is a number of municipalities are starting to come online with their APS system. their automated penalty system. So with the flexibility of bringing that system into play, which the City of Hamilton is underway right now, we're working again with legal, the courts, planning, MLE. There's a whole bunch of different cross-departmental teams all working together. They may have advanced the APS system, or they may have been further ahead than the City of Hamilton is. So with regards to, for example, I just wanted to clarify Councillor Nan's question, because we did Google it for Waterloo. Waterloo does have APS up and running, which is why they will have more cameras enacted out in their roads, for example, than a municipality that does not. And when you have the APS system up in place, which is similar to a parking ticket, you're able to go online and you're able to pay for it through the APS system, similar to a parking ticket, versus going through the provincial offences court system, where there's resources being used with regards to ASE. So is that answering your question, Councillor?
Probably, but it's just my confusion. I'll own it. It seems that we're locked into an administrative process that is disabling us from exploding this according to community need and circumstance. And so in my simple mind, I'm thinking about the work that Nick Winters did and those folks about, we have to do locates. We can bring locates in-house and we can do it faster and more cost efficient. I'm just trying to understand why we seem to be locked in to something that's slower and also antiquated in terms of technology when other folks are racing ahead. I'm trying to understand the constraints that we're in and whether that's because of our relationship of reliance on Toronto. I'm sorry, I just don't understand it, through the chair.
Yeah, through the chair. So I'll start, and then Manager Fields can also provide maybe some additional context. So we're not behind because we're locked into any relationship or procurement with the City of Toronto.
Okay.
The City of Toronto did a procurement, and it was with Redflex. And for all the municipalities, and there's many of us that want to be a part of that program, we have all signed agreements to have that as the approved supplier. So we're not behind with regards to anything with regards to dealing with the City of Toronto with regards to that. In order to advance the program, there are a number of factors that we needed to be taking into consideration. When we're looking to get more cameras, for example, through the vendor, we need to contact the vendor just to confirm availability and deal with, for example, timelines on when we're able to get that up and running in our community. And working with the number of cameras that will be out in the field, they will be generating, depending on what's happening out there regarding speeding, there'll be a number of infractions. That component of this piece is dealt through the provincial offences court system. So right now, with regards to their capacity, that is something that we work very closely with them on, the number, the thousands of tickets that would come through, and the capacity there. So all municipalities, this has been recently approved through regulation, is that we're able to move to an automated penalty system. And that's where a number of municipalities have worked to advance that and may have it up and running. And it's just been more recent that some of those municipalities have had those systems up and running. And the City of Hamilton is a municipality that's underway right now to putting that into effect as well. Once that system is up and running, we will then have, I'm going to say, more flexibility with regards to the number of cameras and bringing more online, because we're dealing with an APS system, for example, versus coordination, and in dealing with resourcing through the court systems, which we work closely with them on.
Okay, thank you. I have one additional question, just so I understand limitations and going towards opportunity. It's jumping off from where Councillor Alex Wilson started on the school zones. Going back to the history of Hamilton, particularly in the lower city, the placement of public schools at the time was kind of centralized because it was in service to more than one neighborhood. Jump ahead to urban renewal and expropriation and the provision of one-way highways through schools, through neighborhoods. That location of that nice older school was not so great anymore because you were beside 4 and 5 lanes of highway. My understanding is that there is a limitation on this technology because it cannot read more than a bidirectional. So by necessity, we're having neighborhoods at a disadvantage because we have technology, but that technology does not work on Main Street. It does not work on Aberdeen. It does not work on those sorts of things. And I'm wondering if you could help me fill in the blanks of how we're going to, what we might do, or is there a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of technology that will enable us to do? And it does tether back to Pierre's comment about we're seeing the activity on these collectors and these arterials, but we're doing the installations because we can within residential. Through the chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. I'll start and then I'll pass it to Manager Field to provide some additional context. Good question or good comments around it. So the one thing I just wanted to note is that ASE is one tool in the toolbox, which is something that's the language we use in the Transportation Division. We've got red light cameras. We've got other complete streets initiatives that we implement, whether it's bump outs, other enhancements we're doing in communities to deal with trying to slow down traffic. So the ASE is one tool that we use, but it won't have the effect in every instance where it's going to be working like you were mentioning across the multi-lanes. But Manager Field, did you want to maybe provide some additional context?
Through the chair to the councillor, there are some technological constraints with the cameras. They can work on multi-lane roadways, but not a lot of lanes. So they can view, from my understanding, about 2 lanes of traffic. So as soon as it gets into the main streets and the king streets that are more than that, then while we've used the ASE cameras on those roadways, it's only able to monitor a couple of the lanes, not all of the lanes. So that's part of the technological barriers. But as time goes on, technology gets better. I'll use the red light camera equipment as an example where we used to have to install loops within the ground to detect vehicles approaching intersection, crossing through the intersection. Technology has advanced where we don't need to put those loops. They were a problem because they would break and you wouldn't be able to detect the vehicles. Now it uses a radar system that watches those vehicles, and it opened up some more reduce the constraints that we have for selecting locations, but also how many lanes a red light camera can be used to monitor, for example. I'm just using that example of how technology progresses. I would expect that ASE would have the same as things move on, that it would use different sources of technology, but there's always going to be some aspect of limitation. One of the other constraints that perhaps is easy to forget is the physical space to install the equipment. On some of our roadways, we just don't say it's a corridor where all the buildings are at the back of the sidewalk. We may not actually have a physical location to put an ASE camera as much as we'd like to. So there's other physical constraints that limit our use of that. But as Councillor Jackson pointed out, we all have smartphones that have, I don't know how many gadgets within them that we all used to have separate things. So I'd expect that technology would advance where we get smaller and more adaptive over time too. Especially now, I think when municipalities are shifting away from when ASE was established, we are all partnered municipalities with the City of Toronto. So City of Toronto took the lead of going out for tenders for equipment. They set up a joint processing center that reviews all of the tickets. And now, since the province allows administrative penalty systems, we're seeing municipalities do different things because we don't have those constraints any longer. And what I would predict part of that is that there'll be municipalities, including possibly us, looking at different routes. So some municipalities are examining creating their own joint processing center. Some municipalities are looking at going to their own vendors. So advancing from that first model was led by City Toronto and then going off on their own. And the reason why I'm saying that is that over time, I think the industry will react as there's going to be more competitiveness to acquiring the equipment as opposed to lockdown with one municipality. And then that's when I think things will progress as far as different models of equipment and possibly reducing the constraints that exist with equipment that we have today.
Thank you, Chair. I know I'm well past time. I have questions pertaining to that which is set out for Ward 1. I'll take those offline before council.
I appreciate that. I gave you a lot of latitude and great questions. So, okay, Councillor Tattison, please.
Thanks, Councillor, and thank you for staff for bringing this forward. I'm fully supportive of this, and even more so, doubling's not enough for me. I'd like to go to alternative 3. But I heard alternative 3 places unimaginable pressure on the provincial offenses administration, and the city needs to transition over to the APS system. But again, I'd like to propose more photo radar and that we go for alternative 3. And I'd like to offer this information to support my position. So if I look at, again, I did some Googling last night too. If I looked at Ottawa already has, at the end of this year, they'll have 84. They had 60 presently, and they are not on APS yet. So there's a system that they were depending on the provincial offices to do their courts, and they were able to get 60. If you do the math on them, Ottawa they have a 1 million population, and so they have 84 cameras. We have 3/5 of Ottawa's population, and we're aspiring to have 14% of their speed cameras that they use. That's 1/7 of the speed cameras. So if we're keeping pace with Ottawa, the rate of deployment that we should be looking at, even if we're on the, not even on APS yet, we'd be looking at 50 speed cameras. Ottawa's not implementing the APS system until the end of this year. So I would just like to encourage staff to consider that we get that moving. If I look at St. Catharines, and St. Catharines is bundled in with Niagara, Niagara will have 12 speed cameras at the end of this year, the same as us if we follow those suggestions. However, their census metropolitan area has a population of 500,000. Hamilton has a population in the census metropolitan area of 787,000. So if we were to use their population and keep pace with just Niagara, who have 5/8 of our population, we should have about 19 speed cameras in effect. So my question to staff, and I know I've asked it and they've answered it a couple times here, what has prevented Hamilton from adapting the administrative penalty system sooner than other cities, because they've already done it, or they're doing more speed cameras without it? And we've been working on this for 2 years to provide, and just to provide a report and put this in, that seems a long time. I know we've had staff changes and so forth, but what's holding Hamilton back from being more aggressive against aggressive drivers?
Director Raya, or Manager Phil.
Through the chair. So, Councillor, we appreciate the support for moving the program forward, and we want to move the program forward as well. With regards to how we can advance it, there are a number of factors, like I made mention, that we need to take away in order to come back, and that's where we'll assist Councillor Nan on the motion for Q1 of 2026, because it's not just the courts and the work they do in partnership with us. There's many other components, like I mentioned. Our own headcount and our own staffing complement is something else we need to take a look at, in addition, again, to the processing and all those things. So we're going to take that back and bring that through the next motion. The APS component is something that is underway. Again, it's a partnership between Public Works and Corporate Services and many other partners. I think it's important for me just to note that we've been dealing with a lot of information integrity this year that has impacted some of the progress in some of these programs, and this is one of them. So we're back to that program moving full steam ahead, again, very closely with our legal group, and in moving that forward. And we'll be excited. There is a report coming forward, to my understanding, that we're working in consultation with legal on to GIC. We're targeting it at Q4. That's going to be talking a little bit more about the plan and the strategy around how we're moving APS forward.
Councillor?
I've got a couple more things too. So can I just get, like, when you say you're bringing this report forward, do you have a ballpark estimation of when that will be in place, the APS system could be in place in Hamilton?
Through the chair, I don't want to speculate on it right now. So we're working closely with legal, and I'll bring that back as part of the draft for the report coming forward, just providing the most current update as to where we are And I'll bring that back to them, and we'll determine how we're going to respond to that.
Okay, thanks. I know we're time, but I got one more point to
Okay,
make.
sure.
Okay, this is just for staff to listen. This came across my desk the other day. Most speed cameras hand out fines. Sweden tried to do something different. They set up a camera that still fined anyone breaking the limit, but if you kept to the limit, your number plate went into a lottery to win some of the money collected from the speeders. It wasn't just a gimmick. In 3 days, average speeds dropped from 32 kilometers to 25 kilometers per hour. It worked because it flipped the script. Instead of punishing bad behavior, it rewarded good behavior, and the people responded immediately. So I just want to throw that out there. You don't have to hammer sometimes. A little bit of honey as opposed to, you know, gets, what am I trying to say there,
That's
as
so true.
opposed to the vinegar. So anyways, I just want to throw that out there, and I would be willing to be creative about something like that if we ever adapted our own system that we had the autonomy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, Councillor Cratch, please.
Thanks very much. My questions happen to be a little specific. I'm trying to understand the methodology a bit. So I'm looking at one of the appendices, and I don't quite understand how it works. So if I'm looking at, I think it's Appendix D, I see a list of all the different places where speed cameras are going to be implemented. Then I see an asterisk beside some. The asterisk says that this denotes the roadway segment has been previously designated as a community safety zone. So if I look at the list, I guess that applies to 4 or 5 of them. I presume the others are school zones. So or is there something I'm missing about something being previously designated as a community safety zone? Could you maybe unpack what that means?
Through the chair to the councillor, happy to clarify that table. The 12 that are there without the asterisks, there's a supplemental bylaw amendment where we're designating those 12 roadways with community safety zones so we can operate ASC on them. The other remaining 5 ones have been previously designated either through council motion or other initiatives. I'll use the example within Councillor Cassar's ward, Powerline Road and Highway 52. We designated as community safety zone in the absence of ASC, with the potential to use that, to leverage that to run ASC in the future. So there's 5 locations that have had community safety zone designation, but have never had an ASC unit operate on them. So there's that mix of both. So we're looking to designate 12 new locations, and then there's 5 existing designated locations, but they've never had ASC operate on them.
That answered a bunch of my other questions, because I was wondering, when I looked at some of the examples, for instance, the example on Meadowbrick Drive, there's a couple different examples. I noticed that there was a community safety zone, but it was in one very specific location. So the corner of Jerseyville, for instance, one of the locations, that's exactly where that zone is. But then the place where the camera is actually going to be installed is this bigger stretch. So I was trying to understand what you were doing there. Why do I ask all these questions? Because I wonder about the potential between now and council for something happening in Ward 1 and Ward 2. Specifically, there's a community safety zone that I believe terminates at Aberdeen Avenue on Queen Street South, right? Of course, the issue there is 1 block south. So it's just adjacent to the community safety zone, but for whatever reason, the community safety zone didn't go all the way to Amelia. It stopped at Aberdeen. As a Ward 2 city councillor, because there are no streets that go east of Queen in that area, except for Aberdeen, there's nothing I can do. But there are 2 streets in Ward 1 that go west. So I'm going to email you to talk about this, because maybe there's a way to swap out one of the Ward 2 or Ward 1 camera locations for that location, because that's more of a priority probably than the 2 that are there right now. Maybe I'll send you an email about that separately. I'm just trying to understand the methodology a bit better so I can get a sense of where and why these things are put there. For instance, on Bay Street, obviously there's going to be speeding, but we're also in the process of doing an in-service safety road review, whatever it's called. I'm sure I've said that wrong, but some type of a review of the road. And would this make sense to be putting an ASC in there when we're doing that, and maybe putting other interventions on Bay Street? So like maybe Bay Street's not the place to be doing it. So I guess I'm just trying to understand that methodological analysis a bit. Could you unpack that for me? I assume that these decisions are not made at the same time. And so that's one of the reasons, right? It's a decision about Bay Street might be made before we decide to do an in-service road safety review.
Through the chair to the councillor, I think the best way to think about it is maybe decouple ASC and community safety zone from each other. We want to use community safety zones more prevalently across the city and not tie them strictly to we're doing this to have ASC. So, because there's a benefit to having community safety zone, there's signage, and then there's, if you're caught doing anything illegally from a roadway safety perspective, you're going to get double fines in those locations. But the Bay Street is a good example where I think ASC is a good complementary measure that we'll use between now and when we would reconstruct or make modifications to Bay Street, acknowledging that there's a speeding issue, so there's obviously a benefit to having something done there. The fastest thing that we can do at this moment is put a camera and then work towards doing the modifications to Bay Street. That's where I think this flexible model really works well for us, where we can deploy cameras in that perspective. But as far as the framework and how we apply it, we really lean on that community safety zone selection guideline and run locations through that listing both proactively. So we'll use information that we gather from the annual collision report or from our collision data, and we'll automatically look at locations for consideration. And then we also obviously receive requests from the public and from council too that will run through that evaluation criteria too. And then it outputs a priority score from highest of benefit to the least, and then we're looking obviously to put ASC cameras where they're scoring the highest out of that whole list. As much as we'd like to have hundreds of cameras running on all those locations, we only have a limited few, so we have to make sure that we're really putting those cameras where they're needed the most based on that evaluation. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that answers my question very much. Thank you. I appreciate it. My only other question for you is about, so, the reason I ask about this simply is because I'm trying to understand the difference between, just very briefly, between areas where you're evaluating the speed cars are traveling and you're talking about collisions. So of course, collision data is really important because it tells us where things go from someone just speeding and maybe just whizzing by somewhere to places where there's actually accidents. Of course, we don't count near misses, we don't count other kinds of factors. And there's not really a true equity analysis in completely how we do this. The reason I ask is because if you talk about Bay Street and Queen Street, I can have a conversation with someone at their porch on Bay Street. I cannot speak to someone at their home, at their door on Queen Street. I mean, I cannot speak to them. It is so loud at times, they can't be heard. I've had to just come back later or go in their backyard. So how do we measure those kinds of considerations? And I know they're not collision-related data, right? But you know what I'm talking about when we're talking about this location. You have massive amounts of cars coming down a mountain access. And when you put the speed camera at St. Joseph's and James, right, that was a kind of similar intervention. So can you understand what I'm saying here? I'm trying to understand this and unpack it a bit more.
That's a good question. I'm happy to clarify it. I'm just looking at the reminding myself of the guidelines. The guideline has a number of criteria that we're evaluating. Risk exposure, collision activity, built environment. So we're looking at a whole bunch of different things, looking at the speeds of cars from a recorded perspective. We're looking at the collision history, but we're also looking at, does the area have schools around it? Does it have parks? Does it have vulnerable road user generators? And then looking at it from a built environment perspective as far as what's in around that area that either speaks to advocating for or reinforcing the need for something or not for the cameras. Your example between Bay Street and Queen Street's an interesting one from standing on the porch perspective and just using the sound. There's a volume piece in there too. That's a factor. Like the number of vehicles is obviously, the more vehicles there are, the higher risk exposure there would be, and the more noise that would carry to if you have a lot of speeding cars. The equity piece, which is we make some reference into embedding more equity decision-making factors within this, building on that equity kind of component, making sure that we're considering that we're putting cameras where transit-dependent people live, or where people who are more at risk to the impacts of traffic collisions live. So the other piece to that is within the framework, if you look at, the previous report for no right turn on red LPIs and LBIs, there's a community piece there where we're looking to bring in input from the community and from the counselors to help form that decision too. So I think maybe that's part of the answer to you of that experience of Bay Street versus Queen Street, is that we want to adapt that decision-making profile to have those considerations as well. So we're listening from the community to make sure we're considering what their lived experiences are, because you're right, the near misses aren't really hard to capture near misses from a data perspective, but it's really easy to listen to someone to say, oh yeah, every time I cross the street, it's, this is happening or that is happening. So we're building in, or trying our best to build in methods to incorporate that feedback to help determine where we're going to put these things. Not in there perfectly right now, but we're building to it. And then part of the recommendations is for us to come back next year to speak specifically how this new deployment model is working, but also how we're embedding those equity or those other decision-making factors into the ASC program.
Thanks very much. Those answer my questions. I really want to understand it because I'm not in any way suggesting Bay Street doesn't need an ASC. It's in a school zone. It's also coupled by the fact that it's also a hill. There's a large volume of traffic that goes in and out of Bay Street, and there's not a lot of traffic control measures in that area. And that's why we're doing an in-service road safety review to do that. And so perhaps having this here will anticipate those changes. Anyways, I'll follow up with you offline with Councillor Morgan-Wilson. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Kretsch. Councillor Kassar, please.
Thanks, Vice Chair Francis. Just wanted to ask a question to get on a public record, just the estimated cost and revenue from this, because I think there was an article in the spec that maybe misinterpreted, so I just want to get this on the public record. So the table shows it very clearly. I think maybe the wording didn't, but the estimated revenue was $885,000, the cost $510,000, and then the excess was $375,000. That was phrased in the report as revenue, when really that is excess revenue that would go into the reserve. So just wanted to put that in the record, to just get staff to confirm that, please.
Through the chair, confirming, Councillor, that any surplus that is generated through the program goes back into road safety initiatives and into that reserve, which is where we use it for the programs moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. I think there was a perception maybe out there that it was a, in quotes, money-losing venture for the city, my paraphrasing, but that's not the case. And just want to comment that, yes, actually putting that money towards further road safety makes a lot of sense. That's where 100% of that money should go, in my opinion. And just to piggyback on the comments made, I think by Director Ryle or someone before, that this, and the report states this, that we'd expect a 10 to 30% increased compliance to the posted speed limit. So this is not a fix-all solution. This is one tool in the toolkit. We've heard that phrase today. It's been used before. So we need money to be able to invest in our roads through better engineering, better design, so that people want and need and are forced to drive more slowly because they feel that's the safe thing to do for them, and then by as a result for everyone else. So, and just to last comment to piggyback on what Councillor Francis said at the beginning of this conversation here, is our job here is to make things safe for everybody, all residents in the city. And that means people need to drive the speed limit. So for those that may feel put out by increased ASC cameras, is just, I would ask you to do some reflection. Our job here is not to get you from point A to point B as fast as possible. We're here to make a city that's safe and healthy for everybody. So exercise some patience. And I think it also should be every individual's responsibility to want to make it a safer place. So please, this is what the city is doing to try to make things safer. So thank you to staff for all the work here. It's one step forward. And thanks to all my colleagues who have, expressed that sentiment, because this is a very, very important topic and it's a journey. We have a long journey to go. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McMeekin, please.
Thanks, Chair. A couple of observations. First of all, I appreciate the discussion. I think we can learn from each other and from other municipalities. But I don't believe we should try to keep pace with anything else other than what's in the best interest of public safety in our community. I don't want to be compared to Ottawa or Waterloo, or, although I think the stats are interesting. I was particularly intrigued about the Swedish example. In Sweden, they also have signs, mobile signs that thank people for their observation around speed limits and their concurrence with the need for public safety. And I've seen these in some of the provinces that I've visited as well. Those kinds of entrepreneurial things maybe really good to embrace, because one of the big problems you have around things like this is a comms strategy. You know, you've got, as Councillor Jackson was alluding to, it's you can't legislate common sense. You've got some people out there who go out of their way to thinking they're free to do so, to destroy things that are put in place, as Councillor Kassar has just reemphasized, to promote public safety. So none of us is as smart as all of us, and I think together we can creatively move forward. I would be, I approve the report, I like it. I would be responsibly inclined to support anything that seriously advances the number of units. I have a particular concern about rural roads, which I articulated when Pierre was speaking. And, you know, we talk about mandates. Police services has a mandate. They go to places that are the busiest, and that's often not rural roads, where you've got big trucks racing, at 40 kilometers on pothole-filled rural concession roads. It's really quite dangerous. So the more of these we get, the more we can free up some of our very esteemed members of the police service to actually patrol some other areas that are less likely to be done. So tools in the toolkit, that's great. We may need a bigger box to embrace some of the things that we've got. I'm a big fan of the speed cushions, as are a growing number of people in my community. All the shortcut routes that take to avoid major arterial roads that become problematic. So I'm really pleased about that. And Councillor Jackson, I really concur with your I think, inclination towards being flexible and mobile and listening to the grassroots. But we got a supply and demand problem here. You can't listen and respond to the grassroots until you're able to respond to the grassroots. And with the limited number of cameras we have, we're unfortunately going to be, fortunately and unfortunately, it's two sides of the coin. We're going to be pinned down to just a limited number of streets. I'd like to see that dramatically expanded. And with that, some commensurate acknowledgement from the people we're all privileged to represent, that safety, especially in school zones, but safety generally is a priority. As I mentioned, Chair, 54% of all my calls are about road safety. You're nodding. I know you know what I'm talking about. So with that, I've got a minute left. I just want to thank staff for the report. And know that if there's any creative entrepreneurial way where we can move aggressively forward, you'll have my support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We're all in agreement when it comes to safety, right? So thank you, colleagues. Okay, we're going to, did I have a mover and a seconder? All right, so we're going to do an e-vote this time. And Councillor Jackson with his thumb up. Thank you, and it passes 12-0. Thank you. We're going to move on. 9.2, September 2025 intersection control list. This list is Ward 3, 5, 8, 11, and 14. May I please have a mover and a seconder to put the report on the floor? Councillor Francis, Councillor Maureen Wilson, thank you. And are there any questions to Director Carolyn Ryle? I don't see any, so we're going to do a e-vote. And I can't see. It's a different thing up there. Okay, 10-0, thank you. Okay, we're going to go 9.2, replacement of screening plant control panel at the central composting facility. May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Beatty, thank you, and Councillor Wang, thank you. And we'll put the report on the floor. Is there any question? And if there is, Director Joel McCormick is here. I don't see anybody. There, Joel is here. Thank you. All right, we're going to do e-vote. Thank you for being here, Joel. Thank you. Council Tatis. Okay, 10-0. Thank you. We'll move on to 9.4, Gardner Road Municipal Class Environment Assessment. This is Wilson Street to Highway 403 off the ramp, Ward 12. Councillor Kassar will put the report, and seconded by Councillor Beatty. Thank you. We'll put it on any.
Yeah, actually, Chair. I wanted to suggest an alternative to the presentation in the report. I've had a conversation with staff, which I would like to continue, about this very, very important project on this corridor.
Right.
It's something that's going to be a full reconstruction and, be in place for 50-plus years. So my request of the committee would be to defer this to a future Public Works Committee meeting, of a date to be determined, once the conversation could be had on this, and actually the adjacent corridor just east of this along Garner Road as well.
Okay.
I think we can bring together hopefully a better recommendation.
Okay, sounds great. So we want a referral for that, and is there Councillor?
Deferral.
Deferral, not a referral, okay. Okay, Councillor Kretsch, you second it? All right.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just looking for a date to which the deferral would be.
Okay, you have a date, or?
Yeah, so how about into Q4? At some point
Q4? Okay.
As soon as
Councillor
possible,
Kretsch?
but if we need to put a time on it, we'll say that no later than Q4.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to do a e-vote though, okay? For the deferral. Are you going to put you put your thumb up? Or did you? Okay, okay. Carried, 10-0. Thank you. Let's move on. Okay, 9.5, amendments to the outstanding business list. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Kretsch and Councillor Wang, thank you. Is there any discussions? I don't see any, so we're going to go e-vote, please. And Councillor McMeekin? Oh, no. Okay, 10-0. All right, we're going to motions now. Okay, we're going to go 10.1. Councillor Kretsch, would you like to introduce your motion? And I understand Maureen Wilson is your seconder.
She is, and there are a lot of motions on today, so I'm going to be brief.
Yes.
So we can get through them all in a timely
you.
manner. But what I'll say briefly about this motion, and seconded by Councillor Maureen Wilson, is that the goal here is to analyze what we can do with permeable materials. So the example I can think of in Ward 2 is we put a washroom in Durant Park. And then we built a pathway from the washroom in Durant Park with asphalt. And what this does is creates, in a very minor way, I understand that, runoff, right? And it creates flooding around the area. It can damage the grass, it can cause other kinds of problems, right? So it's not permeable. It means that the rain can't get through the structure to get to the ground, right? And it's not great for stormwater runoff. So the question is, can we look at other ways of doing this where the rain can get through the material and it can still meet accessibility standards? Because what we want to make sure is that people can use asphalt if they want to use a mobility device or something else, but there's other kinds of materials out there that we can use, and we've seen them used around the city by private companies. So this asks staff to look into this and find out more and bring back a report that says how we can use more permeable materials. That's the long and short of it. I think I've got that covered.
Thank you. And we have Councillor Jackson. Would you like to ask a question?
Yes, I would, of the
Yes.
mover, please, through you, Chair Pauls. I just wrote down when I read this, rubberized surfaces at the playgrounds with a question mark. I would hope, because a number of us, I know Councillor Pauls, you have, I have, where the community has asked for those disabled children to easily, more accessibly be able to utilize the playground equipment instead of the wood chips with rubberized surfaces. I hope this isn't necessarily going in that direction for the sake of climate change. Well, Tom, we can't use rubberized surfaces anymore for the disabled children. It'll be something they'll have to sacrifice. Can I just get some assurance, please? Thank you.
Just in the, right in the way, or therefore be resolved, it just says they're coming back with potential use in parks. So it's not going to be coming in and ripping up what's existing. It's saying that we're going to have more options, right? So when we're going forward to do things, we're not going to just have perhaps options A, B, and C. There'll be options D, E, F, G, L, M, N, O, P. And so this is going to be helpful in terms of that, Councillor Jackson, but my understanding is no, that it has nothing to do with that.
Thank you for that, Councillor Crouch. Just through you, Chair Pauls, can I just hear from the top bureaucrat overseeing environmental services, Director Graham, please? Thank you, Councillor Crouch. Sincerely, I appreciate your assurances. But can I just hear from Director Graham as well, just to satisfy, beyond a shadow of a doubt, my little bit of worry?
Yeah.
Through the chair, Cynthia Graham, Director of Environmental Services. So I understand the motion is seeking information, which council can then use to direct staff for implementation in future projects, may have budget implications, may have operational implications. But just to set your mind at ease, Councillor, rubberized surfaces in playgrounds is permeable.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh,
Thank you, Director Graham. That elevated my comfort level more. Thank you.
that's great. Thank you. All right, 10-2, Councillor Crouch. Oh, we have to vote. Wow, okay, let's vote, e-vote. We got excited about that. It's 11-0, thank you. 10.2, Councillor Crouch, would you like to introduce your motion? And Councillor Kassar is your seconder.
Yes, this is about sidewalk repairs on James Street North in a specific section. It's part of the Ward 2 annual sidewalk repair program, which I've been aggressively funding since I've been elected. This is a very specific project, and we're targeting it for this part of the year, which is weird, because we want to make sure that all the major festivals, Supercrawl, those kinds of things are wrapped up by the time that we do this, so we're not disrupting too many folks on James Street when they're doing stuff. So that's the motion, is to replace a section of sidewalk there. For those who don't know, we planted this entire stretch of James Street with street trees and then put in sidewalks. And as the street trees have aged and grown, there's been a whole number of issues here. So almost every section of James Street North needs to be repaired quite significantly. And we have to do kind of advanced tree discovery. So you have to take up the individual concrete area. You have to look at the tree, assess things, figure out what you're going to do, and then come up with an implementation. So it'll take likely years to do the whole stretch of James North and James South, but this is hopefully going to get us part of the way there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. And we're going to do a e-vote. And it's 11-0, thank you. Now, Councillor Jackson, would you like to introduce your motion on 10.3? And who's your seconder?
Chair Pauls, I would like to introduce it now. Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Ward 10 Councillor Jeffrey Beattie, windscreen installations at 3 bocce courts listed there in Ward 6. Whereas the bocce courts at Lisgar, Temple Mead, Trenholm Parks provide important public amenities to Ward 6 residents and the wider community, whereas the windscreens would be an enhancement to the existing bocce courts to encourage benefit player participation during windy conditions. Whereas windscreens came at the request of Ward 6 bocce associations via the Ward 6 office being funded solely from the Ward 6 office. And whereas windscreens are not standard at bocce courts and the intent is not to establish a new standard, i.e. windscreens will not be replaced if damaged or worn out, therefore be it resolved, A, purchase and installation of these windscreens be completed by the end of this calendar year at the 3 bocce courts funded from the Ward 6 capital discretionary account, number listed and upset limit, including contingency and HST not to exceed $6,000, and B, General Manager of Public Works or designate be authorized directed to approve, execute any and all required agreements, ancillary documents with such terms and conditions in a form satisfactory to the city solicitor. As always, I need to give thanks. This was volunteer, community, grassroots driven. The 3 presidents of the association, President Coquiera, Valeri, Messina. I want to thank Superintendent Brad Jones and Superintendent Brian Carey for helping me with the motion. And as always, the final wordsmithing by Elsie McIntosh, seconded by Councillor Beattie. Thank you, Chair Pauls.
Thank you, and I have one question. Will you be playing bocce now?
Seconded by Councillor Beattie.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to go e-vote, please. Yeah. Okay, we'll keep going. 11-0. Thank you. All right, 10.4, Councillor Wang, would you introduce your motion? And who is your seconder? I don't have it here.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Taddison. This is
Okay.
about speed cushions on Trajana Avenue South. Thank you to the staff for doing the speed report, but unfortunately, that didn't warrant it. So what we have is residents on Trajana that have submitted a petition. This is supported by 66 of the 121 homes, so 54% of Trajana Avenue, so it does fit the threshold, and it will be coming out of the Transportation Speed Cushions Installation Program. So, and all costs are associated through the Ward 4 Capital Reinvestment Reserve 108054 to an upset limit not to exceed $12,000. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll have an e-vote on that, please. And it's 11-0. Thank you. 10.5 is my motion, and I'm wondering if Councillor Francis will take the chair. Thank you. And I will not read it. I'll just say that this is for bleachers to be users fee for the Wentworth 3-on-3 basketball. It was a great event, and it's at McQuestion Park, and it was a fundraiser. So I just want to read that therefore be resolved that the user's fee costs associated with the Wentworth District Basketball Association, Inc., 3-versus-3 basketball fundraiser at TB McQuestion Park, 130 South Park Avenue, be funded from Ward 7 Capital Discretionary Account at an upset limit, including contingency HST not to exceed $2,020.21, and that the General Manager of Public Works or designated be authorized and directed to approve and execute any and all required agreements and auxiliary documents with such items and condition in a form of satisfactory to the city solicitors. Thank you, and thank you for your support on this. My seconder is Councillor Francis.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Are there any speakers to this motion? Seeing none, we will have that electronic vote now, please. Vote is up. And that vote carries 11-0. The chair is back over to you, Councillor
Thank you,
Pauls.
Councillor Francis. 10.6, Councillor Maureen Wilson, would you like to introduce your motion, and who is your seconder?
Thank you. My seconder, I'll ask Councillor Wang if it's okay. Thank you. This is to rehabilitate some garden beds that are set along York Boulevard that serve intentionally as a pollinator highway along York and then split Lock North and South. It is with the incomparable Jen Baker, the GM of Hamilton Naturalist Club, who is such a community treasure that I think this community would be less without her. So very, very pleased that she does all the things that she does. Thank you.
And, we will do an e-vote, please. And 10-0, thank you, and passes. 10.7, Ward 1, Councillor Maureen Wilson, please introduce your motion.
Thank you, Chair. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Kretsch. This is for the investment of some grant money for the Westdale and the Lock Street BIA. Lock Street is open for pedestrian only during the select summer Sundays. And Westdale, we use part of the parking parkettes for the purpose of activating the Westdale BIA. So as has been noted previously by some of my councillors, it's costly to close these things off and to assure safety. So this is just to help the small business in deferring some of those costs. Thank you.
Thank you, and we will have any discussions. I don't see anybody, so we'll go to e-vote. And it passes 10-0. Thank you. Councillor Jackson, would you like to introduce your motion, and who's your seconder?
Chair Pauls, once again, I would like to introduce it. Moved by myself, seconded by Ward 5 Councillor Matt Francis, installation of speed cushions on Toby, Green Meadow Road, Kerr Street, and East 45th. Whereas the City of Hamilton has adopted Vision Zero approach, which considers human error as part of the roadway safety equation. Whereas residents on Toby, Green Meadow, Kerr, East 45th, and Ward 6 have advocated for the installation of speed cushions to address roadway safety concerns as a result of speeding. Whereas our Transportation Division completed traffic calming warrants for Toby, Green Meadow, Kerr, and East 45th and Ward 6, which determined that speed cushions were not technically warranted, but where signatures were collected from residents on Toby between Grenadier Drive and Elliott Avenue, resulting in 54% of the homes on Toby wishing to have installation of speed cushions as a traffic calming measure, where signatures were collected from residents on Green Meadow Road between both streets, resulting in 75% of the homeowners wanting speed cushions as a traffic calming, where signatures were collected from residents on Kerr Street between two side streets, resulting in 100% of the homes on Kerr wanting speed cushions installed for traffic calming measures, and where signatures were collected from residents on East 45th between two side streets in support, 87% in support of the homes on East 45th for the installation of speed cushions as traffic calming measures, and whereas the Transportation Division conducted a review to select suitable speed cushion locations on Toby, Green Meadow, Kerr, and East 45th, which have been reviewed by the Ward 6 office. Therefore, be it resolved. 8, Transportation Division be authorized directed to install speed cushions as a traffic calming measure as part of the Transportation's 2025 speed cushions installation program at the following locations: 2 SCs on Toby Crescent, 1 speed cushion on Green Meadow, 1 on Kerr Street, 1 on East 45th. All costs associated with the installation of these be completed through my Ward 6 area rate of reserve account number noted at an upset limit not to exceed $15,000, and General Manager, Public Works, City Clerk be authorized and directed to execute any required agreements and ancillary documents with such terms and conditions in a form satisfactory to the City Solicitor And as always, Chair Pauls, I need to thank so much Director Ryle and Manager Field for all their input and help towards all the petitions that came in and reviewing them, helping me with this motion. I got to give a shout out. There's such great civic engagement on the East Mountain Ward 6. My constituents, sincerely, with all due respect, they just keep this ward councillor's feet to the fire and ensure that all of the desires to ensure that the East Mountain is a desirable place to live, work, recreate, and be safe. I got to thank Steve Brush for authorizing and organizing 3 of the petitions, and Deborah Coles for organizing the Toby Crescent petition. And as always, the wordsmithing professional advice to Elsie McIntosh. Seconded by Ward 5 Councillor Matt Francis. Thank you, Chair Pauls.
Thank you, and I hope I didn't rush you here. Okay, you were reading so fast. Okay, thank you. And we're going to go for Evo. You were out of breath. Okay, thank you. Okay, it's 11-0, thank you. 10.9, installation of speed cushioning on Reckenview Drive. That's Councillor Beatty's area.
Thank you, Chair, and you are my seconder
Yes,
for this
I am.
motion. I do not have the skill of Councillor Jackson, so I'm going to jump to the therefore be it resolved with a brief explanation that the Transportation Division be authorized and directed to install 1 speed cushion on Regalview Drive between Highway 8 and Glencrest as a traffic calming measure and as part of the Transportation's 2025 speed cushions installation program. I think that should read Transportation Departments. That all costs associated with the installation of the traffic calming measures be completed through the Ward 10 minor maintenance budget as listed, with an upset limit, including contingency not to exceed $3,000. The highlights being that it was not technically warranted, but there was 100% adoption in terms of the residents looking for the speed control measure to be installed between Glencrest and Highway 8, and looking for support from committee for this. And thanks to my seconder.
Thank you. All right, Evo, please. Eleven to 0. 10.10, Councillor Francis, please introduce your motion.
Installation of speed cushions on Mountain Avenue North, Ward 5, and this is seconded by you.
Yes.
And this is a petition driven by 84% of the homes on Mountain Avenue North. Therefore, be it resolved that the Transportation Division be authorized and directed to install 2 speed cushions on Mountain Avenue North between King Street East and Collegiate Avenue at approximately number 20/17 and at number 61/64 Mountain Avenue North as a traffic calming measure as part of Transportation's 2025 speed cushion installation program, and that all costs associated with the installation of the traffic calming measures be completed through the Ward 5 minor maintenance account listed below at an upset limit, including contingency not to exceed $6,000.
Thank you. All right, we'll go, any questions? No? Evo. Eleven to 0, thank you. 10.11, enhanced bicycle protection, including concrete dividers. Councillor Cratch, would you please introduce your motion? And I see that Councillor Kassar is your seconder.
Indeed. Yeah, I'll be brief. This is about trying to address some of the bike lanes downtown and get them protected. Specifically, in this motion, we'll get some work started in 2026 on Charlton Avenue West, which is a pretty dangerous stretch. Outstanding to this motion, I'll just say out loud, is, on Herkimer Street, eventually we're going to want to come back with a motion to address that because those are parallel streets and they both have bike lanes on them going in different directions. This also contemplates work and gets reports back from staff with respect to bike lanes on Bay Street. So probably the most dangerous spot for cyclists in Hamilton, in downtown Hamilton, is a stretch between basically City Hall and as you get closer to Aberdeen, we do have the little protected barriers going north from City Hall all the way down to Cannon, but south we don't. And so what happens is cars will not always pay attention, and they'll just slightly veer into the bike lane, and it happens hundreds and hundreds of times a day. So this will make sure that cars are staying in the street, and that once we get the in-service road safety review done on Bay Street, hopefully it'll recommend that we do that, and then that'll be coming back separately. Lastly, Ferguson Avenue North. And so for those who know that part of the city, going King Street and going north, there's all those little pavers that are there, right? Those little interlocking bricks. And so it's not easy to install a divider there to separate the bike traffic and the road traffic, because you have to anchor those little barriers down to something, and you can't anchor them down to a paver. So that's one thing that staff are going to report back on as part of this motion, is so what do we do in that section of roadway? And then once you get up to Barton, there's the bridge that goes into the north end, and that is a very dangerous trip for cyclists. Right now it's a piece of paint, but you can't widen bridges. So the problem is, how are we going to put in a barrier there? So staff are going to also report back on that. So this motion does a few things. One, it puts forward the barriers next year on Charlton and reports back on Bay Street and reports back on Ferguson Avenue North this year, so we can find some more funding to address those issues. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so we'll do e-vote. There's no questions, so e-vote, please. And it's 11-0. And we'll move on to 10-12. Windscreen installation of bocce courts located at Memorial Park, 87 Glen Cannon Drive. Ward 10, Councilor Beatty, would you put your motion, introduce it?
Thank you, Chair. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Tom Jackson, and very similar to his motion at 10.3 for the installation of windscreens at the bocce courts at Memorial Park. Therefore, be it resolved that the replacement of windscreens for Memorial Park bocce courts to be funded from the Ward 10 non-property tax revenue account at an upset limit, including contingency not to exceed $1,200 be approved, and that the General Manager, Public Works, or designate be authorized and directed to approve and execute any and all required agreements and ancillary documents with such terms and conditions in a form satisfactory to the city solicitor for the purchase and installation of windscreens at the bocce courts at Memorial Park. Hoping for universal adoption of this. Thank you, Chair.
And will you be playing bocce?
I'm a keen observer of bocce.
Okay. All right, let's see vote, please. Uh, 11-0, thank you. 10-13 is Councillor Spatafora's motion, but Councillor Francis will be introducing the motion. Councillor Francis.
Yes, this installation of speed cushions as a traffic calming measure on Novaco Drive, Ward 14. It is moved by myself, second by Councillor Beatty. Whereas the City of Hamilton has adopted a Vision Zero approach, which considers human error as part of the roadway safety equation, whereas residents of Novaco Drive have advocated for the installation of speed cushions since 2018 to address roadway safety concerns as a result of speeding, whereas the Transportation Division has completed the traffic calming study for Gilwood Drive, which intersects with Novaco Drive, resulting in the decision to install 3 speed cushions on Gilwood Drive, as well as installation of tiger tail signage beneath all existing stop signs at the intersection of Gilwood Drive and Novaco Drive, whereas Novaco Drive leads to Shawinigan Park and St. Vincent de Paul Catholic Elementary School, whereas the Ward 14 councillor has been informed by the Hamilton Police Service that Novaco Drive would benefit from traffic calming measures given their experience with speed enforcement, whereas the Ward 14 councillor would like to proceed with speed cushions due to the strong advocacy and expressed desires of local residents. Therefore, be it resolved, A, that the Transportation Division be authorized and directed to install speed cushions on Novaco Drive as part of the Transportation's 2025 Speed Cushions Installation Program. B, that all costs associated with the installation of traffic calming measures be funded through the Ward 14 Capital Reinvestment Reserve listed below at an upset limit, including contingency not to exceed $6,000. And that the General Manager of Public Works and City Clerk be authorized and directed to execute any required agreements and ancillary documents with such terms and conditions in form satisfactory to the city solicitor. Thank you.
Thank you. And who was your second?
Seconded by Councillor Beatty.
Okay, Councillor Beatty, thank you. All right, we'll go to your vote, please. Okay, so it's 11-0. We're going to go to notice of motion, and we have 11.1, Councillor Taddison. Do you need to waive the rules?
No, I'm going to bring this forward at the
next
next Public Works, and I
Okay.
just say that I have every intention of bringing it forward at the next Public Works, but because this is a rural road with some nuances that aren't encountered inside the urban boundary, I'm allowing staff to help me work through it, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right, we'll move on then. I'm going to relinquish the chair to Councillor Francis, and I need to waive the rule on my motion. So it's commemorative plaque funding for 510 Concession Street. Can we waive the rules first? I need,
Do you have a seconder for that?
yes, Councillor Francis.
Okay, I'll second that, no problem. Do we need an explanation for that on record? Sorry, please.
Oh, the explanation is that it's been, I have people calling me because they've removed the one that it was there for many, many, many years, and people are wondering what's going on. And we have the Ciccone family coming, and that's around time, within a couple of weeks. So I wanted to get it in right now.
Okay, thank you. We'll have that vote electronically. The vote is up. And that vote carries 11-0. Please introduce your motion,
Thank
Councillor
you.
Pauls.
So my motion, I'm putting it on, and I wonder if Councillor Jackson will second it. And the reason is it's on Concession Street, and I know that you've been involved in Concession Street. And I want you to know that the corner there, 510 Concession Street, used to be Hillcrest. And believe it or not, I used to go there for lunch all the time. I worked at the Royal Bank, and my father-in-law owned the real estate, and once in a while, he would come over and said, let's go to Hillcrest. And I knew the family quite well, the Ciccone family, and of course, everybody knows that they own Ancastro Mill. But that plaque was removed. And it was removed because it was causing some safety issues, and it never was replaced. And believe it or not, I have people calling me saying, when are you going to put a plaque back on there? So we're going to have a gathering, we call the Ciccone family, and we're going to put it back up. I don't know the location, it's going to be around there, but so it's going to cost roughly around $5,000, and I'm honored, more than honored, to take it out of my area, because Concession Street, as Councillor Jackson know, we want Concession Street to be the best place where people go shopping, the beautiful view that people have when they go there, the parks, everything. And so I hope you guys can support this, and I'm just going to read the therefore, okay? Therefore, be resolved that the costs to incur by the tourism and culture heritage sector of the Planning and Economic Development Department for producing and installing City of Hamilton commemorative plaque at 510 Concession Street be funded from the Ward 7 Capital Discretionary Account 330-2309700 and an upset limit, including contingency and HST, not to exceed $5,000. So I hope I could have your support, and I'm looking forward to having the little ceremony there and do the plaques. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pauls. Seeing no speakers to this, so we will take that electronic vote. Vote is up. And that carries 11-0. The chair is back to you.
Okay, so I guess now we're at the end of our meeting, and we will adjourn. And That's fine. Have fun. We don't have to vote for that. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.